Do do do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. I thought we would just at least show this to start off the stream. Good meme here. We found that Jeffrey Epstein never existed. Never existed. Figured we'd start the show off with quite a laugh. Let me just adjust my camera here so you guys can see my don't be stupid remark there. Welcome to Sab's podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. That's right. I know we have so much to discuss tonight. I had to start off with a jokey joke. I had to start off with a joke. Tonight's theme is Don't Be Stupid. Because I feel like these stories, it's like I feel like they think that we're dumb. Like I just do. So we'll get into all of the stories tonight. We also have this interview with Professor Marandi as well. Let's go ahead and say hello to people in the chat. We got to start off with some comedy sometimes. We got to. Okay, what's up? Awesome Black Dude says, if you can shape emotion, you can bypass logic. If you can bypass logic, you can control behavior. Interesting. Shout out to Esther says, like number 10. Greetings, Blockbuster says, hi. What's up, Blockbuster? What is up? Shout out to Flower Bro says, the media has been crickets regarding Ryan Lewis Mosqueda. I have to check that story. I haven't had a chance to look into that. Shout out to Justice by Karma. More American people need to start being real about what's really going on instead of being too scared to step up and do anything about it. If we leftists can do it, then we can help everyone do it. I agree with you. I agree with you. Shout out to Salma says Ayatollah. Ayat Allah is a holy word for Christian, Jews, and Muslim. Ayatollah means sign from God. Birth of Christ is Ayatollah. Free Palestine. Always coming with the truth, the lyrics here. What's up, Amber? If I was president and many people were accusing me of being a PDF, oh, I think you mean a pedo, and being in the Epstein files, I would do everything I possibly could to release them unless I was in the Epstein files. Oh, we're going to get into all of it, Amber. Shout out to CBC Voter says happy Tuesday, Sabby and Eric. Greetings, War says, does anyone have the link to the article about what Schumer could have done to stop Bibi? I think Eric put the link to that in the chat. Yes, he did. He did. Greetings, Byron says, make executive order 11110 great again. Shout out to, of course, Eric keeping things real in the background. What is up? Greetings, Hannah says, sup. Shout out to Lawrence says, free Palestine. Greetings, Randy says, good evening, Sabrina and all my revolutionary comrades. What's up, Randy? Shout out to Brian. Elon has got to start dropping the names of other people on the list. He has to continually keep doing it to no freaking availability and keep the pressure on. The MSM will give up now, but he can't. Such BS. I saw something earlier today. Someone shared a tweet of Elon saying that Steve Bannon was on the list or something like that. Very interesting. Shout out to Roz says, I like this beat. Greetings, Jimmy Zimzam says, hi all. What's up, Jimmy? How are you? Greetings, Joan said, I made it. Love you, Sabby. Love you too. Shout out to Crystal says, hi y'all. Greetings, Sarah says, doobie doo. And shout out to Jimmy also says, hi y'all. We got a lot of y'all. We got the Southerners in the chat. South is in the house. And greetings, Danny says LOL. Says LOL. Okay, quite a bit to get into tonight, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I do want to give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Let's go ahead and put them up on the screen, ladies and gentlemen. We always got to make sure we give shout outs to the patrons doing the damn thing, keeping the lights on around us. Thank you so much to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. There's a group called Sabsters as well. Don't forget about the Sabbies. Everybody knows a Sabby. What is up? And of course, we also have members. Thank you guys so much for your support. And I want to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. Let's give it up for Sandra Davis. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you, fam. All right, guys. Again, quite a bit to discuss. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the thumbnail here, and then we'll get into that interview with Professor Marandi. A lot of things said there. So let's go ahead and discuss. What are we talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen? I told you the theme is don't be stupid because I feel like they think we are. I really do. I feel like they think we are stupid. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, of course, Professor Marandi interview. He is going to be breaking down this interview that Tucker Carlson had with the president of Iran. Another thing that we talked about, you guys know, Professor Marandi is in Iran. So we have like, I think a seven and a half hour difference. So we spoke earlier, we recorded this earlier, and I said I would premiere it tonight for the stream. That discussion is a big part of it. We also talked about Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the White House, the remarks that he made about what's going to be the future for Gaza. A lot to dive into with that particular interview there. We're also discussing, if you haven't heard by now, the Epstein case is closed. That's right. Jeffrey Epstein's case is officially closed by the Department of Justice, and I wonder why. We're going to get into everything they told you before they decided to make this decision. We're also going to talk about the pieces of the puzzle. We're going to put the puzzle together tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and explain to you what I really think is going on here. And I find quite some interesting coincidences. So we'll get into all of that. The timing of all of this is interesting. We're also going to discuss Elon Musk has decided to start a third party. What does that third party look like? We'll get into that, ladies and gentlemen. This is his response to Donald Trump deciding to, move forward with his big, beautiful bill, as he called it. So Elon Musk has decided to fight back against him by starting a third party. We're also going to discuss, and this one, I think this story kind of flew under the radar. You guys remember that Target boycott that was started around about DEI? Right. So when I discussed that story a while back, I told you guys I'm all for boycotts. If you don't want to buy people's stuff, you ain't got to buy their stuff. I am here. Get with it. I totally understand that. But what I did not understand is why they were begging Target to put their products back up on the shelf. That I did not agree with. I was like, why are you begging them? Take this time and start your own thing. Right. So now it appears that Cenat, who is a very, very popular streamer, it looks like Target has gone around the people who are boycotting, and they have decided to sign a deal with Cenat. I'm going to tell you why that is incredibly controversial. And last but not least, this story is crazy. So we haven't done the craziest stories of the week in a while. This story here about the subway abduction in broad daylight. We got to get into that and how these things can happen very quickly, ladies and gentlemen. So we will be discussing all of that, fam. Again, the theme is don't be stupid. So let's not do that. Let's not be stupid. Let's go ahead and get into this interview here with Professor Marandi. Again, we spent time discussing that interview with Tucker Carlson and the president of Iran. And I think you might be surprised to hear what he had to say about how some people in Iran feel about how the president did in that interview. So I found that very interesting. We also dive into Benjamin Netanyahu's visit in DC. So let's go ahead and get into that, ladies and gentlemen. Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest today, you've seen him here before, is Professor Marandi. He is a professor at the University of Tehran. Welcome back, Professor Marandi.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Sabrina.
So I think the first question I have for you is about the Tucker Carlson interview with the president of Iran. And from what I've seen so far, people in the United States in particular are losing it. People are calling for Tucker Carlson to be canceled. People are calling him a traitor. Why do you feel so many people are losing it over this interview that he's had with the president of Iran, given that Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin just over a year ago? Why are people so upset?
Well, actually, the president's also getting a lot of criticism here for being too soft, but that's a different story. But I think the problem really lies in the fact that the United States has antagonized Iran. It has demonized Iran for 40 some years. In the case of Russia, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it really wasn't much of an issue. And gradually, of course, the United States was expanding NATO, and they were planning against Russia, and increasingly the anti-Russian narrative began to grow. But it was nothing like Iran. Iran, after all, has been the axis of evil for a very long time. Many Americans have been brought up with a very negative perception of Iran. And it really doesn't matter whether it's Fox News or it's MSNBC. The narrative is the same. If you notice, when Trump and Netanyahu waged their wars against Iran, CNN was talking about sleeper cells in the United States. In other words, they were antagonizing Iranian Americans who have nothing, who most are not political. They're very quiet people by and large. And they did that basically to mobilize the country against Iran. So it doesn't matter if it's Fox News or CNN. The language may be the same. It may not be the same. Fox News may be more bombastic, but it is extremely hostile. whether it's CNN or Fox News, or as I said, ABC, NBC, CBS, whoever. So the antagonism is universal. It sort of reminds me about Trump in 2016 when he was first elected. They said he was a Russian agent, a Putin puppet. But when he started firing missiles into Syria, suddenly everyone was pro-Trump. And the reason why Syria was so evil was because of Iran, because it was somehow affiliated to Iran and the resistance against the Israeli regime. So if it wasn't for Iran, probably the Americans wouldn't have had such a universal support for destroying the country and for bombing the country and for supporting extremist groups there. So I think, people in the United States, people my age, who are in the United States, they were brought up with an evil Iran, the mad mullahs, the ayatollahs, and how evil they all are, and they're out to kill us, they're out to get us, but they can't find the country on the map.
Right. Well said there. You mentioned that the president in Iran, I guess, is getting some type of pushback as well. Why are people criticizing him? You said that they said he was too soft.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, a lot of people have been saying that he should have been more assertive about Trump, about the United States, about how we cannot trust the United States, how negotiating with the likes of Trump is not going to get us anywhere because of the brutal aggression, because he was a partner in the crime. He was deceptive. He tried to fool the Iranians into believing that the negotiations were serious, and then quietly he was working with the Israelis to carry out mass slaughter in the country. When the attacks took place on the first night, they brought down apartment blocks just to get one person, killing tens of people. And then again, Western media, it doesn't matter if it's liberal or conservative, they were all talking about how the Israeli intelligence was carried out such a precision attack and how successful it was, whereas they just bombed apartment blocks where they knew a senior commander was living, which is no secret. People have homes, they go home at night, and so the point is that here he was criticized for being too soft. I understand why he spoke the way he did. I agree with some of the criticisms, but I also understand that he's speaking to an American audience that is sympathetic to Tucker Carlson, who's himself is anti-war. So while I think he could have said some things a bit better, but I also think some of the things that he said were useful. And from the comments, I didn't watch the last 5 minutes of the interview because something came up and I never had the time to go back and finish watching it. But I saw a few of the comments and they seem to be not bad. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. There's one part in particular here I want to get into when they bring up the question of having a nuclear program. I want to go ahead and share this here because I think this is the part where I think people just, again, I would ask the question, why do all these other countries get to have this? So I want to go ahead and bring in this part here from Tucker Carlson. This is at the very beginning.
Mr. President, thank you very much for doing this. There is a pause, or seems to be a pause, in the war between the United States and Iran. How do you think this will end? How would you like to see it end?
We did not start this war, and we do not want this war to continue in any way. From the very beginning, it was the motto of my administration that I always adhere to, and that was fostering the national unity inside the country and also fostering peace and tranquility and friendship with the neighboring countries and with the rest of the world.
The American President Donald Trump has said that the United States bombed your enrichment facilities because the government of Iran refused to give up its nuclear program, and that there can be no peace until Iran does give up that nuclear program. Would you be willing to give up the nuclear program in exchange for peace?
I would like to tell you what has happened, and it was Netanyahu since 1984 has created this false mentality that Iran seeks a nuclear bomb, and it has insinuated that Iran is trying to develop a nuclear bomb in the past, and it has put it in the minds of every U.S. president since then, and to make them believe that we would like to have a nuclear bomb. But the truth is that we have never been after developing a nuclear bomb, not in the past, not presently, or in the future, because this is wrong, and this is in contrast to the religious decree or the fatwa, which has been issued by His Eminence, the Supreme Leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, that so it is religiously forbidden for us to go after a nuclear bomb. And this was always corroborated thanks to our cooperation with IAEA, because they were always there that to verify this and to substantiate that we have never wanted a nuclear bomb. But unfortunately, this cooperation was disturbed by the unlawful attacks against our nuclear facilities.
Okay, so that part right there I thought was really interesting. I really appreciate the fact that he made it very clear from the very beginning of the interview that no, we do not seek to have a nuclear bomb, etc. But what I found interesting, that question from Tucker Carlson when he says, would you be willing to give up your nuclear program? I think that's the wrong question, because the question I think that should be asked is, why does Iran have to, demolish their nuclear program, but everybody else is allowed to have one? And I think that's the question that Tucker Carlson should have asked. Now, I don't know when he's doing these interviews if the translator is right there next to him. I honestly don't know. So I don't know if he had a list of questions. He just asked those questions and then the translation is done afterwards. I'm not sure, but I feel like it's really important that I, express to my audience that we have to ask the right questions. And I feel like you shouldn't put this on Iran and tell them they have to get rid of their nuclear program. You should ask the elephant in the room, why is it that all these other, countries are allowed to have a nuclear program, but you are not? I think the fairness here needs to be brought up. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that is a flaw also in the way in which the president, the way in which the president also responded, I think, had its shortcomings, and he should have said and made reference to the fact that Iran has the right to have a nuclear program and enrich uranium in accordance with international law, in accordance with the regulations of the International Atomic Energy Agency and the NPT. And that Trump is not in a position to take away Iran's rights as a sovereign country. This is not the 19th century, and it's not the 18th century, and apparently Trump and NATO still think that this is the early 20th century or the 19th or 18th century, where the West can just simply destroy other countries and get away with it. Well, and they continue to do that. They destroyed Iraq, Libya, Syria. They tried to destroy Cuba, Lebanon, and so on. But in any case, you're right that the question is problematic, to say the least. Of course, maybe Tucker Carlson just wanted to see what the response would be, but I think probably the president could have done a better job I think the president should have done a better job in responding. Of course, it's easy to criticize, because whenever I do interviews, I always finish. When I finish, I say I should have done it differently, or I didn't speak well, or I'm usually not happy with my own performance. So I don't expect the president to be perfect, but I think he could have done better.
Why do you think Tucker Carlson mentioned that he also reached out to Benjamin Netanyahu for an interview as well? For those who are not aware, it wasn't just him reaching out to the president of Iran. According to him, he said that he reached out 3 times and has yet to receive a response. Why do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is avoiding having an interview with Tucker Carlson, considering that I would say a good portion of Tucker's audience supports Israel or did support Israel, especially if we're talking about the evangelical Christians? Why is he dodging that interview?
Well, maybe he was afraid that what happened to Ted Cruz would happen to him too, because ultimately the logic of a genocidal maniac is going to be flawed. And these people, they're used to speaking on mainstream media and legacy media, whatever it is. They are all going to be obedient to the narrative. It doesn't matter. I mean, I remember once upon a time there were some people who used to think that the BBC was somehow different from other media outlets, which is not at all the case. The BBC will be deferential to Netanyahu, and the BBC will speak to an Iranian leader with the assumption that Iran is a regime, that the Iranian leader is not legitimate, and they will be insulting and abusive to the Iranian, but they'll shake and nod their head when the Israeli regime's prime minister speaks. So if the Israeli regime prime minister speaks, they'll hold the mic in front of them and shake their head. But if it's the Iranian leader, it'll be an Iranian leader. It'll be very different. That's just how it is. So why would Netanyahu think he has to go and speak to Tucker Carlson when he can go and speak in the White House, and all of the media outlets are simply going to reflect what he says, and then the commentators and the pundits are going to confirm that yes, the Iranians, this is the narrative of Iran. Yes, the Iranians want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, and their nuclear program therefore is a threat. It's very simple. Done. And then ordinary Americans who don't know anything about the reality or politics, they'll believe it. Whereas the Iranians, of course, don't want Israel to exist. They want it to cease to exist. But like Rhodesia, but like apartheid South Africa, they want it to cease to exist. So a nuclear program has nothing to do with the fact that Iran wants this regime to stop being a ethno-supremacist regime, to stop carrying out ethnic cleansing, to stop carrying out genocide. But they will, whether it's MSNBC or CNN or ABC, this is how they'll frame it. They'll ultimately say, well, the problem is, so even if Israel bombs Iran, they'll say, well, Israel has the right to defend itself. Why? Because Iran wants to, Iran wants to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, and Iran has a nuclear program. So they can rape, plunder, kill, just like Gaza. The logic of Gaza is that Israel has the right to defend itself. And so did Nazi Germany based on that logic. Hitler had the right to defend itself. And all of the criminals in history had the right to, the southern states and the United States in the 19th century, they had the right to defend themselves. The conquistadors had the right to defend themselves. The South African supremacists, they had the right to defend themselves. That's the logic, basically. So mainstream media will give Netanyahu what he wants. He doesn't need to answer to Tucker Carlson, or he doesn't feel he needs to.
That's an interesting point. Another thing that was mentioned during this interview was if Israel tried to assassinate the president of Iran. I want to get into this part here as well, because I thought that this was pretty interesting here. Let me go ahead and share this.
Will not be given the permission again to attack us.
Do you believe the Israeli government tried to assassinate you?
They did try, yes. And they acted accordingly but they failed. And as a true believer, I believe that it is in the hands of the God Almighty to determine when a person will die or will not die. If he wills, the God Almighty wills, then you can die when you are walking freely in the streets. And but I would like to tell you that I am not afraid of sacrificing myself for in defense of my country and in safeguarding and defending the sovereignty, the freedom and the independence of my country. I'm willing to give my life, to give blood for that. And nobody here, I mean, none of the government officials is afraid of losing their lives in line of defense. But will it bring security to the region? I mean, bloodshed, more bloodshed, assassination, killing others. Will it bring peace and tranquility and stability to the region?
With respect, can you tell us how you know that you were an assassination target? A week and a half ago, I don't believe I've seen that confirmed anywhere. How are you certain they tried to kill you?
Of course, it was not the U.S. that was behind my the attempt on my life. It was Israel. I was in a meeting. We were discussing the ways to move forward. But thanks to the intelligence by the spies that they had, they tried to bombard the area that we were holding that meeting, in which we were holding that meeting. But as I told you before, it is God who wills when a person will die and give up his life.
Okay, that part right there. I actually believe the U.S. would have been involved in that with Israel, but that's just me.
No. I agree completely. I think that was also, he didn't have to frame it that way. The Israeli regime, all of its assassination attempts, all of its sabotage, all of the airstrikes that it carries out, all of everything is done with the cooperation of the United States, with not just the United States, the Five Eyes. Western embassies in our country collect information and pass it on, and these are shared. And in our neighboring countries, these embassies do the same. Some of our regional countries that are proxies of the United States or which are subordinate to the United States, they cooperate with U.S. intelligence, the U.S. intelligence agencies, and by extension, but with the Israeli regime as well. So this is definitely not something that the Israelis do on their own. It's very clear that without full support of the United States and the West, the rest of NATO and their proxies, the Israeli regime wouldn't be able to conduct any offensive against Iran. It wouldn't even be able to survive its conflict with Hezbollah or Hamas or the Palestinian people at large. So it is with the full support of the United States, and I have no doubt that the intelligence that is passed on to the Israelis is most probably, this sort of information is most probably passed on by the Americans.
Right. It kind of reminds me when Biden and Kamala were promising that, or they were saying they were pushing for a ceasefire. Remember that whole debacle? And there were some of us that tried to explain to people that you guys, like, Israel's doing exactly what the U.S. administration wants them to do. And, people are like, no, just give them a chance. Just give them a chance. And then it was earlier this year, it was revealed that Biden and Kamala never told them to stop dropping the bomb, never told them to stop doing that at all. So I think it is an illusion that some Americans may have to believe that the U.S. is not behind what Israel is doing. They're 100% behind it.
Because the legacy media was giving out this misinformation on purpose because people were turning against the Israeli regime. They were turning against the Holocaust. And so they had to, on the one hand, make it seem like they were trying to do something, but at the same time, they were very firm in supporting the Israeli regime continue to carry out the genocide. It's clear as day that legacy media in the United States, as I was saying at the beginning, for example, when discussing Iran, legacy media in the United States is a tool of the powerful, and the powerful are in one camp. They may argue over abortion or some other minor issues, because when it comes to humanity and the destruction of countries and the rape and plunder of nations, these are really very, very minor issues. But both sides are on the same page when it comes to the dirty war in Afghanistan, supporting Al Qaeda, supporting the Taliban when the Taliban took over, supporting ISIS and Al Qaeda in Syria, in Libya, bombing Yemen, bombing Iraq, destroying Iraq. All of these were done by both parties. They're one party. Some like to think that they're different. They're not different. These minor internal issues are really unimportant when you look at the bigger picture. The United States has destroyed our region. It's destroyed our region. And every day people are being slaughtered. Just 2-3 hours ago, I saw this clip which I tweeted. It's really horrific. A young boy buried, half his body was buried under the rubble, and I couldn't watch it. I don't know if he's dead or not. But it's just happening day and night. Does anyone care? Does anyone in the political? I mean, are the Democrats blocking the genocide, or the Republicans blocking genocide? No, they're both the same, and all of the media outlets affiliated to these powerful people, they're the same. So we should have zero expectations, whether they're British or American or French or German or Australian. They're all going to say the same thing.
That's right. That's right. Another thing he did ask him, speaking of assassinations, was about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. So he did also ask him about that. I want to go ahead and show that as well, because I do think this is something that people need to hear.
Donald Trump. What does that mean exactly, and what do you think of it?
To the best of my knowledge, they have not issued decrees or fatwas against any individual or against Donald Trump. And first off, it has nothing to do with the Iranian government or to His Eminence, the Supreme Leader of Iran. What they actually meant by the fatwa was in condemnation of an insult to a religion or religious personalities, and they were actually saying that this is deplorable, this is unacceptable. So it was not directed towards the US president or any other individual, and there might be people with their own ideas and opinions, but I can assure you that the meaning of this fatwa should not be construed or considered as a threat against any individual.
Has Iran ever backed an assassination attempt against Donald Trump?
This is actually what Netanyahu is trying to insinuate and to make your people or the president of your country to believe. But this is wrong, because Netanyahu, as I said, has its own agenda. It wants to drag the U.S. into forever wars, as I said, and to bring more insecurity, instability, and unrest to the whole region.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is ridiculous. Like, this idea, whoever even came up with this narrative, which I believe originally started with Israel, that Iran tried to attempt assassination attempt against Donald Trump. I feel like Israel's just grasping at straws at this point, and they're just throwing anything out there to try to get the narrative back in their favor.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, and I personally think that there's a strong possibility that there will be some sort of false flag operation in the United States carried out by the Israeli regime or its supporters in order to mobilize public opinion to help Trump initiate some sort of conflict with Iran. I think that's quite possible. In fact, I think that probably Tucker Carlson, the reason why he asked this question is because he has that concern. And since he is probably the best, well, he's very well connected, probably better connected than any other journalist in the United States because of his relationship with Trump, to the intelligence agencies. And I'm sure he's probably heard things that made him put this question to the president. But it is quite stunning that those religious scholars, as far as I know, there was one in Iraq and two in Iran, who gave this fatwa. This fatwa was I haven't seen the fatwas, and I should have been, I should have done my homework. If I had known you were going to bring this up, I would have done so. But this was in response to Trump threatening Ayatollah Khamenei. He said, we'll leave him alive for now, or so Trump is basically threatening to murder Ayatollah Khamenei, the leader, and he gives himself the right to murder, to slaughter, to threaten leaders. And then other religious scholars in Iraq, the first one who issued a response to Trump was in Iraq, and there were two in Iran. So this was basically a response. I think the president should have, again, he could have explained that a bit better, but it's obvious that there's no death threat. It's obvious that no one believed that the Iranians were trying to kill Trump. When he was assassinated, he himself tried to imply that it was his opponents in the deep state. That's what the people around him were saying, and it helped him become the president. I think it was Tucker Carlson who said after the assassination that he's now the president of the United States, and he was right, because that shifted the narrative in the United States. So I think it's very clear that those, over the years, all these Iranian sleeper cells, where have they actually carried out assassinations? It's been 47 years now. So they're going to have sleeper cells for the next 200 years whenever, and then they're never going to use them. And if they're sleeper cells, then why don't you find them and at least show one? After all these years, you could at least have discovered one of those cells and put them in front of the American people and say, this is one of the sleeper cells. It's all fake. This is all to prepare the grounds for further hostility, to make people in the United States hate Iranians, hate foreigners, hate whoever the United States wants them to hate, so that they can pursue policies that they want to pursue. And the people behind this are not people who care about American interests. They're people who care about Israel's interests, the interests of the Israeli regime. This is all about Netanyahu. It's all about Zionism and ethno-supremacism, and it has nothing to do with the interests of the United States. If it wasn't for Israel, the U.S. relationship with Iran would be completely different. Does Iran have any problems with Brazil? Does Iran have any problems with Mexico? Does Iran have any political problems with Nigeria, with South Africa, with Niger, with it's basically the United States, and the countries that don't have good relations with Iran are countries that are bound to the United States. Americans won't let them have good relations with Iran because the United States threatens them. If they have good relations with Iran, they'll sanction them. So this is all about Israel.
Yeah, even after September 11th, there was a lot of anti-Muslim sentiment in the United States. So the fear tactic definitely did work here at that point in time. And I think what's different now is just that I think in particular, a lot of the younger generation, they've really woken up. They know about the history of Israel, how it was created. They know about, Zionism, the founder of Zionism. So they have really educated themselves on this issue. And I point to the younger people because that is the future generation. They are the ones that, hopefully they will educate their children differently. They will teach them the truth about what Israel is and what it has become. So I think that's what they really did not prepare for that. It's like they prepared for the generation of people who were around at that point in time, but they didn't think about the next group that would be coming after them. And I think that's what kind of caught them off guard.
And if you look at even 9/11 or September the 11th and how Muslims were antagonized, all of those Muslims basically came from Saudi Arabia, and they followed an ideology promoted Wahhabism and Salafism, which was promoted by allies of the United States and used against countries like Iran, and an extremist ideology. And then a decade later, the United States was using Al-Qaeda again in Libya and in Syria. And we know that, we both know and so does your audience, Jake Sullivan's email to Hillary Clinton on February the 12th, 2012. Less than 11 years, a bit over 10 years after 9/11, where he says in Syria, Al-Qaeda is on our side. So after killing over 3,000 people in New York and creating such, devastation in downtown Manhattan, and then being the cause of endless wars, the United States, once again, within a decade, roughly after a decade, were aligning themselves to the same group. And so, those who are the young people, hopefully they'll bring about change. But the problem is that through repetition and through hearing the same thing over and over again in the different mainstream media outlets, they're all saying the same thing over and over again. So the assumption among many ordinary Americans is that, yes, it's the Muslims. They don't think about, well, how about, why are they working with these same terrorists again 10 years later? They don't tell that to the people. And so the people just have these very misguided ideas about Muslims. For example, I have Jewish friends. A couple of my Jewish friends. I have lots of Jewish friends. But when they speak about, for example, Judeo-Christian values, right? Great, but Muslims see Christ, or especially Shias see Christ. Shias see Christ as infallible, and they see the Quran says that he was taken to the sky, he was taken by God, and that he will return. So, but somehow Muslims have no shared values with Christianity, and we're the enemy. Why? Because it's in the interest of the powerful in Washington for people to think that way. So the Jewish faith, which does not consider Jesus to have any positive attributes, let's say, that is okay. But Muslims are somehow evil and demonized. And the interesting thing is that the United States and the political establishment which promotes anti-Muslim sentiments, they are the ones who support Wahhabism, Salafism, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all of these extremist groups. But again, this is not something that you will ever hear on the BBC or Sky News or France 24 or Deutsche Welle or, I don't know, The Guardian or the Independent, let alone in American media outlets.
That's right. There's one more part here I do want to show you, and that was towards the end. Tucker Carlson did ask him the question about what is the possibility that China would get involved, or China or Russia would get involved if there was a bigger conflict.
Not by us.
Mr. President, my final question: if we wind up in a broader war, could you expect assistance from Russia and China, military and economic assistance from your allies, Russia and China?
We have always put our trust in God, and in God we trust, and we are capable enough to defend ourselves and to stand on our own 2 feet and to defend our country, our territorial integrity to the last drop of our blood. As I have said again and again, we don't want wars, we don't want to develop a nuclear weapon, and this false image, this wrong mentality created in the minds of the U.S. Decision makers and officials is because of the devilish machinations instigated by Netanyahu and the Israeli regime and its policies based on warmongering. And the U.S. president should know that another war will only spread more instability in the Middle East, and it is not going to be in the interest or in favor of the U.S. president or the U.S. government to move in that or towards that direction. They instead need to choose peace and tranquility, which is something that I am and my government and my country are after. And
that part right there, I thought was really interesting. I am glad that he did ask him about that. That's a question a lot of us have been wondering, would Russia or China get involved? But what we're hearing here from the president of Iran is that he said, well, we would plan on defending ourselves, right? So it seems as though they're not trying to bring Russia, or he doesn't want to bring Russia or China into this. And I thought that was important for people to hear. I also thought it was important for people to hear him say that the U.S. should not pursue this option, that what we should pursue is peace. So once again, we are seeing where one of the countries that the U.S. says is our greatest enemy in the world, they're the ones calling for peace, and it's the U.S. that tries to escalate things. What are your thoughts there, Professor Marandi?
Yeah, I think, of course, again, that's one of the issues where in Iran, some people are criticizing him and they're saying he should have been more assertive about the United States and stress that the United States under Trump is carrying out murderous aggression, and that with such policies, coming to an agreement with the United States becomes virtually impossible, and that sort of thing. But I do think that the broader message is correct, and that basically the United States is, the Iranians, first of all, are an independent country. What the Russians and the Chinese do, that remains to be seen, because at the end of the day, I'm sure that the Russians and the Chinese are very fearful of the behavior of the United States. The United States has gone rogue and trying to decapitate a country and to bring about regime change. That was the objective. The Americans and the Israelis tried to overthrow Iran, and they failed. Why? Because the United States and the Europeans believe their own nonsense. They believe that Iran is a house of cards. They've been saying that for years. Iran is corrupt, it's collapsing, it's falling apart, the people hate it. So what did they do? They went and slaughtered military leaders along with their families, along with their neighbors. And what happened? Nothing. The exact opposite. People rallied around the armed forces, the guards, the government, the state. In other words, the exact opposite of what the Americans and the Europeans were expecting and hoping. And what it did was that it united Iranians in a way in which I haven't seen since Saddam Hussein, backed by the West, invaded Iran. So that narrative collapsed. But the problem for Russia, for China, and for everyone, BRICS nations across the world, is now the United States is going about murdering heads of states, murdering leaders, and no one in the West is going to come. No one in the West protests about the assassination attempt on the Iranian president that was carried out by the Israeli regime. No one in Europe. No one is going to condemn it. And of course, why would they? When they are supporting the genocide in Gaza, that just shows that they have no moral values. They have no red lines. But that is something that the rest of the world is deeply fearful about, that the United States, the elites in the United States and Europeans have collectively lost their minds. They have no red lines. They're willing to do anything in order to preserve this collapsing empire. And instead of rethinking their policy, instead of trying to pull back, cut spending, shut down most of these military bases across the world, try to restructure the economy, try to improve their relationships with other countries, what do? They double down, they support genocide, they attack countries, they impose more punitive sanctions, and they expect to get results, even though we continue to see that the situation goes downhill for the United States. It's quite amazing. And I'm not a historian, and I've read a bit of history, and I know you have too. Dying empires, from my understanding, as they go downhill, they become increasingly irrational. And the United States and its European partners, the elites, I believe that become very irrational. I think Trump's meeting with Netanyahu last night was actually yesterday was actually very ridiculous. And the way in which he was praising Netanyahu, praising a mass murderer in front of the world, that demolishes the little bit of credibility that the United States had in the eyes of the world and in the eyes of its own youth. Young Americans, as you point out, they know what's going on. And then they see the president praising the most monstrous person of our era in front of the world. That, I think, it just shows that how it reflects that broader my understanding that declining empires, they become increasingly irrational, detached from reality. And I think Trump is a good example of that.
Yeah,
which is dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, people should look at the fall of Rome to see some of that irrationality that happens to all of these empires. But to your point about Netanyahu meeting with Donald Trump, one of the conversations that was discussed at the table, at least in front of the media, was about what to do with Gaza. I do want to show this here again. You guys will see that Benjamin Netanyahu here is basically the one who's running the show. Donald Trump basically defers to him. Listen to this.
Is your Palestinian relocation plan still on the table? Is there a plan? Has there been any progress in finding countries to accept?
Bibi, why don't I let you answer that question?
Mr. President, wait a minute.
So they're asking him about the relocation plan for Gaza.
Wait, he's got to answer the question.
I think President Trump had a brilliant vision. It's called free choice. If people want to stay, they can stay. But if they want to leave, they should be able to leave. It shouldn't be a prison. It should be an open place and give people a free choice. We're working with the United States very closely about finding countries that will seek to realize what they always say, that they want to give the Palestinians a better future. And those who, and I think we're getting close to finding several countries, and I think this will give, again, the freedom to choose. Palestinians should have it. And I hope that we can secure it close by.
And we've had great cooperation from surrounding Israel, surrounding countries, great cooperation from every single one of them. So something good will happen.
So I take a tremendous issue with this statement here. I know the volume was kind of low, but basically what Benjamin Netanyahu said was that those who want to leave Gaza will have the choice to do so, and those who want to stay can stay. Okay, I have a couple problems. First of all, the Palestinian people made it very clear that they don't want to leave their home. To me, this just sounds like ethnic cleansing. This whole thing about the way they're framing this as the freedom to choose. He said, we don't want them to be in a prison, but they've been in a prison all these years. It's called Gaza, where you close them off. He said they should be free to leave, but you never gave them that opportunity before. They weren't free to leave before. So now all of a sudden, Benjamin Netanyahu is coming to the United States and he's here and he basically makes it seem like he's trying to present himself as this diplomatic person to basically make it seem like he's trying to give them another option when all these years they never had an option. So I take tremendous issue with this remark here from Benjamin Netanyahu and for Donald Trump to basically just say, well, let's just defer to him. Disturbing.
Sabrina, something that I know you know this, and I'm sure your audience does too, because they're politically aware people. But Hitler wasn't some crazy madman who was raving and screaming all the time. I'm sure when they were sitting at the negotiating table, he was very he sounded very logical. All of these monsters in human history, they had, in recent decades or centuries, they wore good clothes, they had perfume, and they ate, very, with their forks and knives, and they were very sophisticated. They watched, perhaps, they'd go and read Goethe, they'd listen to classical music. They saw themselves as humanists and as the educated, the heirs of civilization. They weren't just like screaming and yelling and all that. So these people around this table, they sit in their suits, but they're monsters. They're monsters. Every single person around that table is a monster. These are the most evil people on this planet. They're carrying out a Holocaust. And then they're talking about, yeah, the people have the choice. It's like, and the media tries to normalize this. And that's one thing that disgusts me about the likes of Piers Morgan. He tries to bring on these genocidal maniacs to normalize genocide, to normalize. It's like bringing on Hitler or his henchmen on TV and say, well, it's a debate. You have Hitler here, and you have his minister of culture here, or his minister of information here, and then you have the minister of information of Poland, or of, I don't know, Czechoslovakia, or whatever, some other country. And then, well, he says this, and it's like a rapist putting him on, having a debate between him and his victim, and say, well, he says this, she says that. It's just normalizing, these monsters. A mass murderer, bring him on TV. He sounds like a nice guy. Look, I mean, look at him. I'm sure, there was something provoked him into doing that. I don't know if I'm getting my point across. Normalizing monsters is, I think, the greatest crime of them all. Monsters are not the Hollywood figures that we often see, where they have these ugly faces, or they look sinister, and they're very openly evil, and they're proud. No, that's not how these evil people work. They pretend that they're the good guys. They pretend that they're the reasonable people. They pretend that they want the interests of humanity to be preserved, and that it's those other people who are the problem. One day it's the Jews, one day it's the Muslims, one day it's the Christians, one day it's the brown people, one day it's the black people, one day it's the white. It doesn't matter. But the point is that they don't walk around raving like maniacs. I mean, you see it, you've seen speeches of Hitler when he's, yelling. That's not how he was in his meetings when they were negotiating with other governments. How someone performs on stage. But I think that what the Western media tries to do is to make these very evil people look normal. And so ordinary people say, well, yeah, Netanyahu and Trump are, they are plotting against Palestinian children. They're plotting to exterminate them. That's how it is. And they are busy exterminating. So they can wear their suits, and they consider all those journalists, they are part of this genocide. They're foot soldiers in this genocide. All of those people who normalize slaughter, it's like, I didn't see the movie, but there was a movie. I'm sure. Well, I can't say I'm sure, but for example, the Nazis who were in the concentration camps, right? Maybe when that Nazi commander, when he went home and he, with his wife and children, he was a really good father, and you could show him in that light and how he played foot. He's still a monster. You can present a monster in a very different light and make him look good. Look, he's such a decent family man. Look how well he brought up his children. This is what they're trying to do with these people. They're trying to normalize monsters. Monsters don't rant and rave necessarily. Monsters look like the rest of us, and they try to talk to the rest of like the rest of us because they want to convince the rest of us that they're not monsters. Otherwise, how in the world would Hitler be able to? And Hitler's just one example. I mean, they like to focus on Hitler, whereas there were many monsters in history. But I'm just saying this so that a European or Western audience would better understand what I'm trying to say. How would Hitler be able to run a country and gain power and to build that army and to kill all these people if he wasn't able to, what do you call it, to speak to this group of people, to convince that group of people? Yes, if you're just ranting and raving, you're not going to get anywhere. So at the end of the day, my deepest concern is how, and the ugliest thing I see of all is not the way in which these Zionists bomb kids every day. They bomb tents full of kids, and they take pleasure in it, and they gather hungry people and they start gunning them down and take pleasure in it. That's not the worst. The worst of the worst of the worst, in my opinion, is these people sitting together and then journalists normalizing them and presenting this as these people as normal human beings, and that they're going about negotiating and offering concessions and offering solutions. No, they're not offering concessions or solutions. They're exterminating a people. They're carrying out mass slaughter. And the Western media is trying to provide them the cover to get away with it.
You're right. And I always say a lot of those corporate media commentators are actors because what we have seen when they're fired, when they're fired from these networks, like Joy Reid, for example, then they do these podcast tours explaining why they were fired. One of the issues that seems to continue to come up, Gaza. Oh, they didn't want me talking about Gaza. They didn't want me to talk about this, like that type of thing. So what we know is that they have already been told what narrative to have when it comes to Israel and Gaza and Iran. And behind the scenes, they know that it's wrong, but they still go out there every day and they give that narrative to millions and millions of people. And the reason why I continue to point to corporate media is because they control the narrative, particularly with the older generation. A lot of older people here in the U.S. tend to watch corporate media like CNN, ABC News, and Fox News, et cetera. Younger people are more open to YouTube, TikTok for their source of news, and X as well. But the reality is that's where the narrative comes from. If from day one, after October 7th, if corporate media would have said, Hamas did this, but let us give you the backstory of, did you guys know the Palestinian people were occupied? Did you know that they were enclosed in this, basically in an open air prison, enclosed in this space, and they can't leave when they want to? No, they left all of that out. And people had to come to independent media to get that side of the story. Right now, Francesca Albanese, you're probably familiar with her. She came out with a report recently that lists all the companies that are profiting off of the genocide in Gaza. And that includes, for people who are not aware, that includes Massachusetts Institute of Technology, right here in Massachusetts. Like it goes so deep. It's not just the military industrial complex. It's not just Palantir. There are all these companies that are profiting off of that, including higher education. So shout out to Francesca Albanese for revealing that. And now you see they're trying to revive the October 7th sexual assault story again. They're grasping at all of these different straws.
I mean, if there was rape and beheadings on October the 7th, then why are they suddenly now saying, oh, we've found new evidence? But you said the evidence was there. They actually if you recall, they showed this film that they wouldn't show us. They just show their friends this film, and they'd come out and say, yes, it's so horrible. But they never showed any of us the evidence because there was no evidence. And now after 21 months, the very fact that they're saying, oh, new evidence has emerged after 21 months, new evidence has emerged, that very claim shows that they have no evidence. And again, I go back to what I was saying in the previous, in my previous statements, that, evil people are not like in these crude Hollywood movies where they're, I don't know, what do you call it when you're there, they play with their hands, these sinister, like, in these Hollywood cartoons or movies or Disney cartoons where the sinister person, had a mustache and he had this, evil look. That's not how it is. I remember once watching a documentary on Hitler, and like it was his secretary or someone, and she was saying, yes, he was a really nice guy. And yeah, it's like evil people are not like, they don't look like evil people as in the cartoon characters in Disney, or they're not like ranting and raving everywhere. They're just like everyone else. They may be very good parents, but they're still mass murderers. They're still killers. They're still racist. They're still ethno supremacists. They still deserve to be have face life imprisonment, if not more than that. But so we have to, that is what I think should be condemned the most, when people normalize murder, slaughter. As I said, it's like the rape victim and the rapist, and you bring them both and say, well, have your discussion on TV. Well, yes, of course, you can have a discussion, but what is the objective here? It is to diminish the magnitude of the crime, because you're normalizing this fiend, this evil person. And on the other hand, you gradually see how the victim, she becomes more criticized. She shouldn't have said that. Well, maybe if she hadn't done this, he wouldn't have done that. And then gradually, what is a clear crime, and the guy should be locked up for the rest of his life, if not worse, suddenly she becomes the problem. She wasn't well dressed. She wasn't, I don't know, she may have smiled when he said something to her or whatever, I don't know. But the point is that this normalization is what they do for Gaza. It's the same thing. It's not different at all. The rapists are at the table. The rapists are at the table, and they're sitting and discussing about solving the problems of the Gazan people, the victims, those who are being, the woman who's being raped. It's no different, except for the fact that it's far worse, because it's not one person, it's millions of people.
That's right. Thank you so much, Professor Marandi, for your time.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's always a pleasure.
Hey guys, Okay, guys, I hope you learned quite a bit there from Professor Marandi. Like I said, he's very knowledgeable about the issues happening in the Middle East. But I thought what he said there at the end was very important, when he said that the evil people don't look like what you think that they would look like the cartoon characters, right? That's not what they look like. They do look like people who are charming, and they wear suits, and they appear to be sincere in many ways. So I think that's really important for us to take in. Really, really important. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the comments, and then we do have 4 news stories that I do want to discuss. Again, tonight's theme is Don't Be Stupid. And again, it's because these stories, I mean, how can you? How can you? Wild Alchemical Spirit says Bill Gates doesn't want anyone to see how many times his name is on the list. Yeah, we're going to get into that. Jen says the U.S. should never be trusted regardless of who's the president. That part right there. Elaine, watch the 18-minute Richard Medhurst video explaining the history and timeline of why Iran ended up at 60%. Very enlightening. I'll have to check that out. Ash says, admittedly, I thought the BBC was a better alternative to American media. I'm learning better. I used to think that too. I used to think that. And I used to think The Guardian was, a lot better. Thank you for the super chat, Daniel. Strike for our rights, organize, #general strike. Yeah, I actually brought on a general strike organization on the show a couple of months ago. And they've been organizing for a general strike. I think they said for 2 years they've been organizing for that. Yeah, definitely good to check that out. But we talked about this at RBN a couple years ago about general strike. We had a general strike summit, and we were telling people, like, that's why I just feel like, honestly, the best thing that you can do is just shut down Capitol. I really do. Thank you, Perry. Worried that Trump will start a war with Iran to cover up Epstein files. This type of thing has happened before. You know what? That would not surprise me. Anton said, question, what happened to that Israeli pilot that I thought was captured by Iran? I haven't heard anything about this except for the first report. And neither have I. That's a good question. I want to check on that. I want to look into that because I haven't heard anything else about that either. Good point there, Anton. The Oracle says finding other countries to receive the Palestinians, other countries except the United States. Of course, right? And Tia says, Star Trek, yes, I know. Oh, we got a Trekkie. The Next Generation had an episode like that where a Cardassian was desensitizing his daughter to the fact that he was torturing Picard. That's right. And not to be confused with the Kardashians, but there is a group in Star Trek called the Cardassian, a species in that show. And I remember that. Very good, Tia. I told you we got the Trekkies in the house. We got the Trekkies in the house. Hello. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And we are moving on. Again, the theme tonight is don't be stupid. Just don't. And don't be stupid with this next story either. Years under the Biden administration, we have heard multiple influencers, and of course, Donald Trump and people that became a part of the Trump administration later on saying that we need the Epstein files. We need to go after Jeffrey Epstein and all of these people who participated in Epstein's island. But the moment that Donald Trump became president, again, they became kind of hush about it. And then all of a sudden, one day there was like this whole PR stunt where they said, we gave these binders of the Epstein information was given to these conservative influencers, right? And then there was nothing in those binders that wasn't information that we didn't already know anyway. Well, remember I covered that on the show? Okay. Because see, now all of a sudden they're saying that the Epstein case is closed. Done. They're also saying that there are no files. Did they forget what they said to the American people? Or is it that they just don't give a damn? I think it's the latter. I don't think they forgot. I think they just don't give a damn. Right? So let's go back. Let's just make sure we are not seeing things, right? Now, just a reminder, this was Pam Bondi. Remember what she said earlier on about the information they received.
Yesterday, all the Epstein files are missing. Can you confirm the status of them? We still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And
tens of thousands, she said. Everybody remember this? And notice she said of Epstein. That's important when you hear the message that she said earlier today during the press conference when she was sitting next to Donald Trump. Because notice she said of Jeffrey Epstein. That part there is important.
There are hundreds of victims, and no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that.
It was just the volume, she said, ladies and gentlemen. It was just so much information, so much volume, and they just had to take their time and go through all of it. Wasn't that what she said? Okay. Because see, now you have the press secretary. Now she's given a different spin on this as well. Listen to the spin that she's given to people now. By the way, did everybody notice something? You notice she's not wearing her cross necklace when she gives this speech. I noticed that. This is something people pointed out on social media. They said, what happened to her cross? Listen.
J and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable. And I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the president's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
So now it has gone from, according to Pam Bondi, when she said there were tens of thousands of tapes with him on it, to, oh, well, there were videos of, child pornography, and it is what it is. And now this is all closed, right? Okay. Because there are people that are running cover for Donald Trump right now. So I just want to remind you again, all the things that were said. Remember when Elon Musk said this?
I think part of why Kamala is getting so much support is that if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman?
So according to Elon Musk, he said that if Donald Trump were to win, that the Epstein files or that list would become public, and the billionaires behind Kamala Harris would be terrified. Notice he said behind Kamala Harris. He didn't say anything about the other billionaires, the one that support Donald Trump. He also didn't say anything about Donald Trump, who is a billionaire himself. These things are very important, ladies and gentlemen, right? So obviously we see that did not happen. We can go back and we can look at what Kash Patel said in 2023 under the Biden presidency compared to what he said come 2025.
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if you release the names, right?
And I've said it, Dan Bongino said it, we've reviewed all the information and the American public is going to get as much as we can release. He killed himself. Do you think, let's play out the logical conclusion of this. Do you think that myself, Bongino, and others would participate in hiding information about Epstein's grotesque activities? Or do you think we would also participate in not prosecuting people we had evidence to prosecute people on? Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? Do you really think I wouldn't give that to you?
Yes. Yes, I think that you would do what you're told to do, Cash. That's what I think. Because, see, we're going to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Because, like I said, people were very loud and proud and vocal when Biden was president about Epstein and the Epstein files and how you need to get that information. But the moment that Donald Trump became president and they became a part of his administration, all of a sudden, it's just, there's nothing there. Nothing there to see, folks. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. So all of the victims that took the stand, they're all lying. Why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison? Right? They're going to pretend there's no list. It does not exist, but they forget the things that were said during that trial and the information that was revealed. But Cash is not alone. I want to take you back to what Dan said also in 2023 compared to 2025.
Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it.
Notice how even when he mentioned that then, right? He said, we're not going to let this go. And they're letting it go. Notice how when he mentioned who he thought was involved, he said Bill Clinton, Obama. Notice he mentioned people that were Democrats. Notice he didn't mention anybody that was a billionaire that's conservative. You see, that was the key warning right there. Because if you're going to be fair, you're going to mention people on all different political sides of the aisle. It doesn't matter what political ideology they have. If they were there and they did that to those kids, that's wrong, period. But Dan, like a good puppet, he decided to let's just do what we do and do what I'm told.
Outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein.
So you see this? You see how people change? This is why I said this is the problem I have with the political parties, because oftentimes, even when it's wrong, oftentimes people back their party, even when they're doing something that is wrong. And that's what you see is happening with Dan, who was all tough during the Biden administration. Same thing with Kash Patel. Don't forget what they said, that there were videos. Let's all go back because they forget everything's on film.
And there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, it was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this. We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him.
Right.
There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it. And there's going to be a disclosure on this.
Okay. So remember him saying that, right? Okay. That was this year, not too long ago. Let's check out the video that they released. I'm going to tell you something about this video as well. The Trump administration omitted an entire minute of the Epstein security camera footage. Pay close attention to the timestamp, bottom left-hand corner, 11:58:56. Check this. Jumps, doesn't it? Right? Now they're going to explain this apparently, but jumps, doesn't it? So what are we looking at here? What are we supposed to be looking at? Right? And what kills me is people who are falling for this. Don't be stupid. Do you honestly think they were going to show you what you thought they were going to show you? Do you honestly think that they were going to say, oh, by the way, here's that list. And we warned you guys earlier on. We told you, those of us at RBN, we said, they're not going to show you this information. They're not going to show you that. You guys think they're going to drop a list of all these famous, wealthy people that have engaged in that activity on Jeffrey Epstein's island? You think they're going to rat those people out like that? What did I tell you before? People stick to their wealth. For the most part, people stick to their class. Now, there are some class traders, but billionaires don't turn on each other. Wealthy people don't turn on each other. All these people operate in the same spaces. And when I say that we need to put the pieces of the puzzle together, let me break it down for you. Don't you find it kind of strange that just last week, Diddy was acquitted on the most serious charges of his case, which is the sex trafficking and the racketeering. Benjamin Netanyahu comes to DC, was just at dinner with Donald Trump on Monday. Benjamin Netanyahu's here. Don't you find it suspect that the timing of the DOJ announcing the Epstein case is closed just seems a little bit strange? Especially considering that Whitney Webb tried to tell us a long time ago that Epstein was Mossad. And you got Israel here. You guys think that Israel is going to let that happen? You think they're going to say, yeah, release the names? Because I'm willing to bet some of the people that are on this so-called list probably living in Israel. Put all the pieces together, all the pieces to the puzzle together. I think there's a lot more blackmail than people realize is going on. I don't think it's just what happened on that island. I think there's some other things that have happened as well, and people are being blackmailed. All the pieces just in time for Netanyahu's visit. Just in time for that. Now, James Lee, he's a real one. He was the first person that I saw that posted about this video. And he was like, wait a minute, look at this video. So check out what he did. I posted the video the FBI released as evidence that Jeffrey Epstein committed unalived himself on TikTok. And the app immediately flagged it as AI generated. Look, right down here, AI generated. What do you know? So I don't know, but apparently TikTok doesn't believe that that video is actually real. And then he was the one that pointed out the timestamp. He's like, what is happening here, ladies and gentlemen? What happens between 11:58 and 12 a.m.? Let's get into his little breakdown here. This is interesting.
This is a test. One could say it's the ultimate test to see if you're going to believe anything that this administration says. The Trump administration is releasing a video in both raw and enhanced versions that it says indicates no one entered the area of the Manhattan prison where Epstein was held the night he died in 2019. This is the video that the FBI is pointing to as evidence. You know, the video that supposedly didn't exist just a few years ago because all of the footage was accidentally deleted. But guess what? We magically found it again, and here it is. There's also no blackmail operation except for all the alleged blackmail schemes that have already been reported by the media. And I might also add that Epstein was definitely not a spy, except for a direct quote from a former U.S. attorney saying that he was told, quote, Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. I mean, it literally cannot get any more Orwellian than this. The party is telling you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears, and it was their final, most essential command.
So people put the pieces together here again, right? Like we tried to warn people. I'm like, guys, what did I tell you? The head of the snake is not the one that they take down. And then you see here, Donald Trump was questioning about Epstein. Of course, Pam Bondi is sitting here with him, and he became very defensive. Now, the reporter is questioning Pam, but watch Donald Trump jump into this conversation and try to take it over. Watch this.
Yeah, sure. If Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
So let me pause here for a second. The reporter was talking to Pam Bondi. Notice how he interrupts and jumps in because the reporter was asking her about the Epstein information. Let me just tell you something, folks. If people don't see what's really happening here, I don't know what else to tell you. But it's as clear as day. I believe, and I said it back then, that Whitney Webb's reporting on this was 100% spot on, that these people have been blackmailed. Don't forget, Donald Trump was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Don't forget this. Don't forget that Diddy was friends with Donald Trump. All these people rolled together. So take all these pieces and we'll put this puzzle together. Like I said, the rich is not going to turn on the rich. Just like I told you, management don't turn on management. Management usually backs management. Wealthy people don't usually turn on other wealthy people unless it's like some kind of personal attack. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, they are going to protect each other. So they were never going to reveal to you the head of the snake. So see how he jumped right in there? Like, oh, let's just talk about something else. Why are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? The reason why people are talking about it is because Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, and some of these conservative influencers who you're also going to see who are defending this as well, for years under the Biden administration, totally went after this and said, Epstein's got to go down. We need those files released. We got to protect the kids, etc. Okay. But now those same people are like, oh, yeah, this is a nothing burger. Let's just move on and talk about something else. That's why people are still talking about it. That's why. So now all of a sudden, we're supposed to believe that all the women that testified, so they are not to be believed. Why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison? Just because? Come on. They really think that people are this stupid? So listen to what they say here.
Do you want to waste the time and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein.
So now the narrative has moved from, remember the video I showed you at the very beginning of this segment where they said he was on video. Now the narrative is not that he's on video, but that he downloaded those types of videos. Nobody believes that. If you got a brain, you cannot believe this, folks. You cannot believe this. I want to take you back, okay? Before Jeffrey Epstein was arrested the second time, don't forget that there was a previous arrest. I think this was in 2008. Don't forget that they raided his home in Palm Beach. See, people forget about that time. And even then, there were supposedly tapes then. So this is why this story don't work. I don't know who got to Pam Bondi or whoever these people are, but I would be very shocked if Israel did not have some partake in this. And I know people are like, oh, Sabs, you think Israel do everything? Considering that he was Mossad? Yes. Yes. I mean, just put the pieces together. Netanyahu's coming here. Oh, we got to announce Epstein case closed. This makes absolutely no sense, guys. All these people roll together. And I don't know who wrote this answer for her. There's so many videos you can go back and look at what she said before.
Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every year, every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night.
Oh, how convenient that the minute would be missing during the time when he supposedly unalived himself, right? All of this just happened to line up at the perfect time. Like, this is crazy.
That's it on Epstein.
You guys see this? You guys, did people really think that Donald Trump was going to take down his buddies? Do you really think this? A lot of people were saying back then, oh, Bill Gates, Donald Trump was at those parties too. Hey, just Bill Gates. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. But you'll see even the influencers who said that, listen, what Epstein did is horrible and we got to protect the children, like Ben Shapiro. All of a sudden, we don't really care about that. All of a sudden, it's not about protecting the children. It's about protecting Israel. And so you'll see even Ben Shapiro here, who claimed to care so much about the children, wants you to believe these lies.
We now have the answers. And the problem is this: people who never hedged their bets, people who never at any point suggested to you that they don't have data to back up the speculation, that the speculation was in and of itself the conclusion, that if you speculate without evidence, that amounts to an actual conclusion to an investigation, they're going to be very upset today, because it turns out that the DOJ and the FBI have concluded that Epstein didn't have a client list and died by suicide, according to a memo detailing the findings obtained by Axios. Now, again, does this put to bed like all inquiries? Of course not. People can continue to speculate as much as they want. And I think there's still open questions here regarding how did Epstein make his money? But that's a very serious open question. And the speculation for a long time was he made his money from blackmail. But the DOJ and the FBI, again, run by people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, are telling you I'm not telling you, they're telling you, people who are members of the Trump administration, people you elected and put into these positions to get you the truth on this matter, are telling you that he didn't, in fact, he was not murdered. He did not keep a client list, and he did not blackmail powerful figures.
And you should believe them just because people elected them, that means that you should believe them. Do you see what Ben Shapiro's doing here? He's trying to tell his audience, you should believe them because they're saying it, and so it has to be true. That is audience capture to the T. And don't forget that Ben Shapiro is a big cuck for Israel. So you know he's going to try to protect Israel at all costs. He's going to try to protect the fact that Epstein was Mossad. He doesn't want, let's not get into that. Let's not talk about that. No, nothing to see here. But the children, he said he cared so much about.
Okay, right. That is the thing that they are saying, not I. They are saying this. If you're willing to throw that over and claim they're lying, then I'd like to see you present your evidence that they are in fact lying. Because I know Dan. I don't think that Dan Bongino is lying to me.
So because you know someone, they can't lie to you? People lie all the time. Does everybody see this? Oh my God. Audience capture, folks. That is audience capture. Listen, there's a number of times there are things I say on the show that people agree with and people don't agree with. But you don't see me change how I feel about something because people may not agree with it. This is what Ben Shapiro's doing right here. Look, I feel like, look, he's not independent media. You got Ben Shapiro doing it. You have the PBD podcast host doing it, trying to make excuses for this. Not independent media. This is what I was trying to tell you guys. He is doing the narrative that he is paid to do. He should be embarrassed. He should be ashamed, but he's not. He's a cuck for Israel.
I know Kash Patel a little bit. I don't think Kash Patel is lying to me. I don't think these people are lying to me, which means that if somebody else continues to claim that they're lying, they ought to provide their evidence at this point. And now is the point at which the facts on the ground have changed. And so either you ought to shift your opinion based on the facts that have now emerged, or you ought to acknowledge that this was never a fact-based inquiry in the first place.
It is interesting how he tells you that those are facts. He doesn't know that those are facts. Presidents have lied for years. Presidential administrations have lied for years. Obama told lies. Bill Clinton told lies. George W. Bush told lies. Trump told lies. Biden told lies. But because they're saying it, you should believe it. Let's go to part 2 of Type VNC, Eric. Nah, see, people are getting caught with their foot in their mouth. Because if you were standing on principle, you would push back on that. But you're not standing on principle because you're trying to protect Israel and you're trying to protect Donald Trump and you're trying to keep your audience. And that's what this is really about. And this is why I continue to say that podcasters should not lead a movement. This is why I say that we should promote it heavily. We can participate in it if we want to, but we shouldn't lead it. And people see what's really happening here. Now, Alex Jones comes in. Alex Jones says the DOJ is running cover for the CIA and Mossad. No one is buying this. You see this? Why isn't Ben Shapiro saying this?
Well, I woke up this morning and turned my phone on and there were hundreds of text messages saying, oh my God, the DOJ just put out a letter that I know you've all seen now saying there is no Epstein client list. There never was any blackmail operation. Epstein killed himself and the investigation's closed. So everybody wants to know what I think. Well, I know what's going on. And so I'll tell you. Trump had 2 ways to go with all of this. He could prosecute all of these incredibly prominent people, household names, or they could use the information to blackmail the deep state. I've done deep research, have a lot of contacts, and know Trump's MO. And he's not into kids. He's not into being peed on and Russian hotels. All that was lies. We now know from the CIA and Brennan and the very crew running the Epstein operation. But the reason that you are seeing this deep sixth is because the CIA with the Mossad and MI6 was running Epstein, and it was an official U.S. government operation.
Isn't this the same thing that Whitney Webb was saying for years? Isn't this what she was saying for years? So once again, you have Israel interfering in the U.S. and something that is crucial. Like again, the same people who said that they were going to stand up for justice and don't forget, we're Christian. Don't forget about that. Don't forget about the ones that said they're Christian and this isn't right and we got to protect the children and all these things that they said under Biden administration. Now all of a sudden it's just, well, Trump and Pam Bondi and them said there's nothing there, so there's nothing to see. Nah, y'all know better. You guys know better. You just want to believe your heroes. You don't want to believe that they could lie to you. You don't want to believe that they have bamboozled you. Politicians are trained to lie. Trained to do so.
Multinational. And it was the family business going back to Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. And that's all on record. So if Trump was to actually prosecute this, it would bring down the CIA. And so that's why you've had Comey, who controlled the files over at the FBI with the CIA, but on that end of the DOJ, having his daughter do all the main cover-ups, not just with the Epstein and Maxwell case, but obviously P. Diddy and the rest of it. So this is the swamp winning. The question is Trump's DOJ actually using this to control the deep state? Or are they just so overwhelmed by it, they are tapping out?
They're not using it to control anything. They're doing what they are told to do. When we say they never go after the head of the snake, this is just another example. Even with the Diddy case, I was like, Diddy's not the head of the snake. They usually don't go that far. One time in particular that I remember is when they took down the 5 families. And that happened because one of them decided to snitch. One of them decided, that was Sammy the Bull, he decided to give inside information. But people have learned since then. And so this is where we're at now, folks. And it's so hilarious. I'm seeing people on social media, they're trying to find a way. They're twisting themselves into a pretzel to try to find a way to defend this. No. Because you've been talking about this for years under Joe Biden's presidency. And you should talk about it under any presidency. But now all of a sudden, you just go back off from it. Now let's pretend things are different. Let's pretend that Biden was president right now. And Biden was the one who said this. There's nothing to see there. I bet you their response would be different. This is what I mean about people not being principled, because either you're for something, you're against something, regardless whose administration this is happening under. And I think people are starting to see that now, that people are not being principled.
Because, let me explain logic here. And from all obvious inside sources, we're the ones that broke with the FBI whistleblowers, O'Boyle and others, Seraphin, all of this that was first unfolding 5 months ago when they were supposed to, have this 14 terabytes. They'd sent it out to the FBI field offices for investigation. And Pam Bondi went on Fox a bunch of times. So did U.S. attorneys from New Jersey and said, oh, yeah, we've seen it, hundreds of victims and videos and all this horrible stuff, and kids being raped. Hundreds of new victims were going to be releasing it. So you wouldn't say all that if you were planning to cover it up from the beginning. So something has changed along the way.
Yeah, they would. It's called lying. People say a lot of things.
And it all points towards this being used to blackmail the deep state. I'm not endorsing it. I think clearly this is what Musk learned about a few months ago and looked like he aged 10 years overnight, looked completely freaked out. And then I think their conscience had to come out and say what he said. I mean, even people like Cat Turd, who is just the quintessential will not question anything in the Trump administration, is completely freaked out now. I mean, this.
We'll get to the Elon part as well. Elon Musk, I saw before I went live, he was on X. I wonder if he still has this tweet up. He was on X and he said Steve Bannon is on the list. Remember when Elon Musk put out those tweets when him and Trump hit butt heads about a month or so ago, and he put out those tweets and he said Donald Trump is on the list or on the tapes or something like that. And then he said Steve Bannon's on that list. Now he said Steve Bannon is on that list. Like, I don't know. We don't know. I don't know. But the point is, there was a list. You see, people think that we forget, because I just want to remind everybody, Robin Minotti shared this. I'm sure this has nothing to do with today's news. Just a reminder, check this out. Epstein's calendar contained multiple meetings with Peter Thiel. This was published August 30th, 2023. Peter Thiel, another billionaire. The billionaire who happened to basically create JD Vance. Peter Thiel. Let's just, again, connect all the dots. Power to the People said, Epstein cover-up. We know the FBI is lying about there being no Epstein client list because it was already revealed in court that Ghislaine Maxwell kept the list in a little black book. So for those who may have forgotten, see, this is how people end up with their foot in their mouth. The book was filled with contact details of Miss Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein's famous friends, including Prince Andrew and former U.S. Presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, and had been mentioned sporadically during their sex trafficking trial. But now they're trying to say there was no, remember this? It was called Ghislaine Maxwell's Little Black Book, containing the names and addresses of nearly 2,000 world leaders, celebrities, and alleged victims. And they said it will remain secret. But again, they're trying to tell you that this doesn't exist. There's no list. See, I remember because I covered that when that information was delivered. And you need to hear what the press secretary says here.
The FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
Go
ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on violent crime and locking up violent criminals has led to the arrest of 14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase from the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where they belong. That they promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did. For any further details, I would refer you to the department.
Like I said, notice her cross is now gone. The point is, you're not putting people behind bars that are powerful people. You're not going after the powerful. You're not going after those people. You're going after people that are lower income, working class, the people who don't have the money, the resources, and the means to get out of that situation. Now, I tried to tell you guys, do not let them distract you from this Epstein situation, because they're the ones that made a big deal of it from the get-go. Remember, they were the ones that said, yes, we're going to release the files, we're going to release the information, etc. So we're just supposed to pretend that this woman here, because they know that these are wealthy billionaire people. There wasn't any poor people on that island. It was people that had money. That can include people who are politicians, celebrities, royalty. Don't forget the photo with Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre, who is now dead. So put all the pieces to the puzzle together. We're supposed to pretend this didn't happen?
I have spent the last 17 years in my own prison for what Jeffrey, and all the co-conspirators did to me. I was raped repeatedly. I was raped 3 times a day sometimes. And I was not the only girl on that island. There was a constant stream of girls being raped over and over and over again. And yes, Ghislaine must die in prison because I've been in hell and back for the last 17 years.
And 27 for me.
I was 10 years old when Liz Stein was being trafficked. I was 10.
10 years old. 10 years old. But they want you to pretend all these things like, no, 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 there's no this, there's no that. And here's something else that's pretty interesting. Pay attention to this. George Galloway shared this. Thank you, George. Did you guys know this? Jeffrey Epstein's secret bank account is still moving millions and no one knows why. Hello? Pick up the phone. Hello? Answer the door. You guys, this is not a problem? Jeffrey Epstein's secret bank account is still moving millions and no one knows why. Not to mention the shame that Jeffrey Epstein brought to the people of the Virgin Islands. Let's not forget about that. They all know. They all know somewhere. Now, John Kiriakou, he talked about this on Fox News after they decided that the Epstein files did not exist. And John Kiriakou says they probably destroyed it. Check this out.
I'm not blaming the FBI director, Kash Patel, or the deputy director, Dan Bongino. I think that layer beneath them, that's part of what we like to call the deep state, has taken this bull by the horns, and they've probably destroyed information. Look at what the CIA did in 1975 after Congress ordered that it release all of its files related to an operation called MK Ultra. The director of the CIA went back to headquarters and ordered everything to be destroyed. And in the end, only about 20% of the documents survived. We're still learning about the FBI's operations against Martin Luther King 55 years after the fact. So now we're supposed to believe that everybody's telling the truth, that there were no files, there were no dossiers. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it because I know how these people operate. I'm not blaming.
And I agree with John there. John was a whistleblower. 100%. I agree with what he said because it's just like, come on. Like I said, people really thought they were going to take down big, like this guy right here. He's a big Trump supporter. I've seen him a lot on Twitter. He said, right now, my trust is government. My trust, I think he means in government, is at 0. On my desk and truck full is what we were told. The lies are blatant. Someone has some explaining to do. People have to go to jail. Now, this is Gunther Eagleman. Again, like I said, big Trump supporter. But what I question is, why did you believe them? Why did you believe that this would happen? Like, they're not going to take down the powerful people. God, I don't know why people keep falling for this. Powerful people are not going to take down other powerful people, especially if it means that it could implicate them. So now he feeling some kind of way. Feeling some kind of way. There could be judges that were on that list. There could have been judges on that island, guys. Federal judges. You never know. When you put it all together, a lot of it comes back to this.
We need America to wake up and prioritize Israel and bring home Israelis and make sure we stand by our number one ally in Israel.
Prioritize Israel. As we've mentioned before on this show, that is where a lot of the sex offenders hide out at in Israel. That was actually covered on corporate media, believe it or not, a couple years ago. I was surprised by that one. That's where they tend to hide out. So put the pieces to the puzzle together. I think Whitney Webb was spot on about this. I do think that Epstein, based on what I've read and what I've seen, I do think that he was Mossad. I do believe that there are some powerful people that were involved. I would not be surprised if some of those powerful people that were involved are Israeli. I would not be surprised about that. We already know about Prince Andrew. So we're talking about royalty. We're talking about politicians. You're talking about celebrities, like people that are higher up and people that have the money to participate. So there was no way that this list was ever going to come out. And whatever tapes that they have, I would not be surprised if those tapes have not been destroyed. And this is why, another reason why you cannot put your faith in politicians. It's another reason why. So you guys see who's really running the show. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Pine. AI can make James Brown saying happy birthday by name. And Kash Patel expects us to believe this video is authentic. Oy vey. Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Elon, after he left Doge saying Trump was on the Epstein list, proves what I've been saying. Contra Matt Taibbi, we can't be sure that everything in the X-Files is shown that we need to know. Itole says Whitney Webb was correct about all of these people being blackmailed. I believe so. Simply C says this comes from the deep state or the part of the government that never changes. They all are nasty and complicit. And thank you, none of your business. He ain't dead. They burned the tapes and files. We'll probably never know. Never know. And you know what's really sad about this? Sad about all of this is that those people who assaulted those children, those underage girls, they're probably still doing it. Just to other people. Maybe they found another island. I don't know. We are moving on to the next story. This one is, I hope, is going to be a wake-up call for people. Whether you have kids or you don't have kids, I think this is something that we need to talk about because someone sent me this. We were talking about the craziest stories. So I want to get into that. First and foremost, smash the like if you haven't had a chance to do so. Thank you. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. All right. So this next story is a crazy, crazy story. But I wanted to share this because I wanted to show you how quickly something like this can happen. There was a young woman. She was apparently getting off of the subway. This is in New York. And a guy tried to kidnap her in broad daylight. Now, luckily for her, the other men that were on that subway platform decided to jump in and basically beat his ass. So kudos to those dudes, because that's not always the case. But I want you to see this because I want you to know just how fast something like this can happen. This was shared by Chalky. Chalky said, I've never been so glad to see someone get hopped in my life. Train conductor knew the assignment and kept the doors open so they could beat him good enough and not miss the train. He should have got poked. New York subway riders prevent man from abducting a woman in broad daylight. Like this can happen to anybody and very quickly. So the guy right here in the white cap and the white, I don't know if this is a suit or what, he was trying to kidnap this girl. Broad daylight. So that's her right there. So you see how the guys, those gentlemen, they jumped in and they said, oh, hell no, what are you trying to do, right? Imagine if they weren't there, right? Or imagine if they just didn't intervene. This can happen to anyone. And this is why, and you'll see another one as well. This is why I always tell people, like, you never know. Just because it's daylight doesn't mean anything. People are bold nowadays. They'll try to take you in the middle of the day.
Oh, shit.
So they
Right. Get that, nigga. Somebody try to tell you something, chill the fuck out. Now you got it.
So do you see that? You see how those guys stepped in to help her? What killed me is even this part here where you could tell where she was trying her best to get away from him. Right here. Notice how he comes after her. See how he's coming after her and she's trying to get away? Now, again, broad daylight, these kind of things happen. There was a friend of mine. She used to wear, again, this is not to excuse anything. It used to make me nervous because she would wear like her headphones when she was getting off the train at night and walking home to her apartment. And I used to tell her, please don't wear your headphones when you're walking down the street by yourself at night, because especially the ones that have like the noise cancellation, because if somebody coming up behind you, you're not going to hear them, you know? Someone was asking, did they catch him? I don't know if they caught him. I saw them beat his ass, basically. So kudos to those guys that jumped in. Vijaya says she was lucky. She was. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm trying to tell you guys, these kind of things happen more often than people realize. When I show you the missing person report, the number, you'll see what I mean. Because I do want to show you guys that as well. Because, oh, thank you, Corey. Corey just told me in the background. Meanwhile, Marshall of Queens was arrested at the scene and found to be carrying a knife and a blackjack. Cop said he was charged with 3rd-degree assault, 4th-degree criminal possession of a weapon, 3rd-degree attempted assault, and 2nd-degree harassment, according to a criminal complaint. That's from the train incident. Cops did get him. So it seems like they did get him. But what I was telling you guys is that it can happen that quickly and even in broad daylight. And notice people were around. And like, he didn't care. Like people were around. And some people are going to see this and they're going to say, oh, it was just, that's New York. That's just New York. No, it's not just New York. People have been taken from subways. They've been taken from bus stops. People have been taken like on their way, just walking home, like, and thrown into vans. There was a former coworker that I had, and she said when she was younger and she was walking home from school, this guy tried to grab her and throw her in a van. I was like, what? She said, yeah. She said, luckily, you know, people came by and scared him away. And I was like, oh my God. That's how quickly it can happen. Now, that's the subway incident. There was another one that involved a child, and this is just wild. Again, in front of other people, So check this one out. Would-be kidnapper grabs a 6-year-old boy off Coney Island Street, but lets him go after the child's parents chase him down. 36-year-old man tried to snatch a young boy who had fallen slightly behind his parents. A witness said the child screamed for his mom as the man grabbed him. The suspect dropped the boy and ran when the parents rushed towards him. Both parents chased him into traffic before police nearby caught and arrested him. Charges were still pending as of Monday morning. It's crazy. Charges are still pending. But this one right here, apparently Coney Island. So you see this guy, see how he just picked up that kid? So the kid wasn't alone. He's with his parents, but apparently, I guess his parents were walking in front of him and he kind of got like behind them. But do you see how he just picked up that kid like that fast? Dandrick said that's why parents always supposed to walk in front of them. You're right. You're right. But this is how fast it can happen, folks. And look, there's other people around. What the fuck? So you see this? Now here's the mom. That's the mom. And I think the father is coming too. They're going to chase after him. So you see how quickly he was going to run off with that kid?
Oh my God! There was a little boy walking with his mother and his father, and he was, falling behind. So a man came and he was trying to cut him off. And then the little boy was trying to spin off on him. So the man just grabbed him up and started running with the little boy. And then the parents turned and started chasing him. And soon as the parents caught up to the man, that's when the man just threw the little boy and the parents just chased after the guy and they caught him.
See how the people who were standing there, like just totally oblivious to the situation, they ain't see him pick up that kid? That's how quickly something like that can happen. And I wanted you to see both of these because I wanted to prove a point. This doesn't just happen to females. Doesn't just happen to females. And one of the things I've always, I try to remind myself is, not to be so trusting of my surroundings, because you never know, like people just come up behind you, just like that guy just came up behind that kid. And I want to show you something about these numbers, because a lot of people don't know this. In particular, check this out. When it comes to African Americans, watch this. Missing African American women and children in the United States of America. This isn't talked about as much. And a lot of times when you talk about like kids and people that are missing on the news, it's usually not a lot of times they don't like talk about like Black people that go missing, especially for an extended period of time. Check this out. It says Black and Missing Foundation reported in 2010 that a total of over 273,000 minorities were reported missing in the United States out of 692,000 for all races. They also report that most women disappear in the states of New York, Georgia, North Carolina, Maryland, and Florida. African American families are left with painful details, wondering what happened to their loved ones. Many Black women and children have been missing for decades. Did you know this part? More than 64,000 Black women remain missing across the United States. Whereas, let's get to this part here. Despite representing 12.85% of the population, I think it's higher than that. I still don't think they get this number right. I still don't think they get this percentage right. Black Americans accounted for nearly over 226,000 or 34% of all missing persons that were reported in 2012. Whites and Hispanics are a combined 80% of the population, but account for 60% of missing persons. You guys see this? When you break down the numbers by age, the Black and Missing Foundation reports that 37% of missing minors and 28.2% of missing adults in 2013 were Black. No fewer than 270,000 minorities have gone missing since 2010, 135,000 of whom were Black, 64,000 were Black women and girls. They were missing nationwide. This was actually reported by the NAACP. And that doesn't omit, by the way, they don't have this in their report, but that doesn't include Indigenous people that are also missing, where people they've been missing for, Delilah was on the show, talked about this about a year or so ago. And she was talking about how people like Indigenous people, especially Indigenous women, just would disappear and the police wouldn't even try to find them. And now, from what I'm seeing from these videos, it seems like to me that people have become even more bold, that they're willing to just snatch somebody up in front of other people and in broad daylight. What does that tell you? Now, kudos to those men on that platform because they saved that girl's life. And the parents that ran, after their kid, like kudos to the kid. Notice he yelled mom. But that's how quickly. There was another video, and some people don't like this, but I'm gonna keep it real. When I was growing up, like my parents were really strict. And my mom used to have this rule, like if I went to my friend's house, I always had to call them anywhere I went, I had to call them and tell them that I got there. Right. So if I was spending the night at my friend's house, I had to call my parents and say, I'm at so-and-so's, I got here safely. And it used to annoy me. Like when I was growing up, and my other friends, their parents didn't make them do this, right? So I was like, man, my parents are so strict. You guys are so strict. Why do you make me do these things? Then as I got older, I started to understand why. My parents were very particular about if I could spend the night at someone's house. And I'm noticing nowadays, this isn't as common as it was like when I was growing up. When I was growing up, like that was kind of a thing, sleepover, slumber party, that type of thing. But some of my friends that have kids make it very clear they do not let their kids spend the night at anyone's house. And I understand. But when I was growing up, my parents had this rule that I was not allowed to spend the night at someone's house unless they had met their parents and they had to have gone to their house. Now, at the time, I thought this was crazy. And I thought my parents were being ridiculous. But as I got older, I started to understand why. Especially nowadays, you can't trust people. So yeah, they were strict, but I look back on some of those things. I'm like, now I get it. Now I understand why some moms always go to the bathroom with their kids. Like when you're in a public restroom, like say you're at a restaurant or whatever, people have been known to snatch kids up in the bathroom. So now I understand why some moms still go to the bathroom with their child. You gotta be careful. Gotta be careful nowadays. But that's how quickly it can happen, folks. Let's go to some of the comments in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Crystal said there's a reason parents do that. Yeah. Yep. Ms. Ritchie said, my mom had the same rule. I hated it. Now I get it. There was a girl when I was in high school. One of our high school classmates went missing. I mean, you never know. Record says people can dress up as ICE and kidnap you too. Huey said they saved her life. Thank you, Empire. We are. Debauchery and pedophilia are systemic to Empire. Too soon to expose the list. No leverage in that. Thank you, CM. Everyone in chat is beautiful. Drink water. It's hot outside. Yes, it is. Shout out from Phoenix. Skylar said MFs are bold. Yep. Just bold as can be now. Ahu said, and it was a boy. Yep. Thank you, Miss Ritchie, for the super chat. If you're a single woman, always pay attention to when the same car keeps following you, especially at night. Call 911 and drive to the nearest well-lit 24-hour convenience center. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Share that one with your friends, guys. Share that one with your friends. All right, guys, quick announcement, and we will get to the other stories, ladies and gentlemen. Many of you know I am filming a documentary. It is called Removed. It is about gentrification here in Boston. We are getting into what happened to what were the Black communities in Boston. And I think it's going really well so far. Our goal is 10,000. This is to pay the editor. He's doing a really good job. And it just basically says here that I'm making a documentary titled Removed about gentrification in Boston. Eric and Corey have gathered great footage so far. We are now working with a professional editor and he's doing a great job, but we need help with funds. If you can, please help donate. And shout out to all of you who have been able to donate. Thank you so much. And I'll put the link to that in the chat. Based. All right. I think people are really going to like it. Like, I'm one of those people, like, I want it to be done already. I want it to be done already. But we got to work out some things in it to make it look really good. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving on to the next story. If you can do me a favor, smash the like. Thank you. And again, the theme is Don't Be Stupid. Don't Be Stupid. It was a song by Shania Twain. Don't be stupid. You know I love you. Remember that song? Okay, so don't be stupid. Elon Musk here has decided to start a third party called the America Party. And I see people saying, yay, this is what we need, another third party. Let's go. Let's get all in. Now, you guys know I'm so pro third party. That being said, I'm not pro corporate party. Right? So Elon Musk third party is another corporate party. And like, I'm not pro that because we already have, corporate parties, right? But that's pretty much what this is. And it's kind of FU to Donald Trump. That's what this is coming from Elon Musk. Let's go ahead and get into this, ladies and gentlemen.
Tonight, on the heels of President Trump signing his massive domestic policy bill into law, his former close ally, Elon Musk, announcing the formation of a new political party. Musk, the world's richest person, taking to his social media site X to say, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom. Musk, who is President Trump's top campaign donor, has been feuding with the president over the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, which the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says will add more than $3 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years. Musk has referred to the legislation as a debt slavery bill and had been teasing a new political party for days.
Yeah. So that's where this comes from, because he was not happy about the big, beautiful bill. And that's why he decided, look, I'm going to start my own party, because basically I think that Elon Musk was embarrassed because he, was really into this whole Doge thing. And I think he felt like Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill just basically made him look like a fool. I feel like that's what this is really all about. But the answer to breaking the duopoly can't just be any third party. It can't be another corporate party, because you're not really breaking nothing. It's just not, and that's where this is headed. And wait till you see the people that have decided to jump on board for this. That's the interesting part.
The Tesla CEO did not respond to questions from NBC News seeking clarity about today's announcement.
The stock market's at an all-time high.
For his part, President Trump has been celebrating the bill. The legislation extends the tax cuts from his first term, reduces taxes on tips and overtime pay, and provides funds for his immigration priorities. It also makes some of the biggest cuts in history to social safety net programs like Medicaid and food assistance.
So that's where this comes from, ladies and gentlemen. That's why he's deciding to start this third party. And I want to show you like what this would look like for him. So of course, CNN, they decided to show people how much percentage he could actually pull. And I think they're kind of looking at this on a national scale. I don't think that Elon Musk is trying to start this party to win a presidential election. I think he's trying to start this party to make an impact in Congress, which would actually make more sense, because the midterms are just around the corner, believe it or not. And then also they're the ones that pass legislation and they're the ones that pass that bill that he's so upset about. But listen to what they say here about the odds for him with this third party.
Here, let's talk parties, Harry. This new party that Elon Musk says he has founded, what's his base?
Yeah, this entire thing makes very little sense to me. It makes about as much sense as selling sand in the desert. What are we talking about here? What is the size of Elon Musk's base? Well, I calculate it to be about 4%, just 4%, 1, 2, 3, 4% of all voters. What is that base made up of? Well, it's those who view Elon Musk favorably and the GOP unfavorably. We're talking just about 4% of all voters out there, because it turns out most of the people who like Elon Musk already like the GOP already. That is, they already have a party for him. In my mind, there is just no base for Elon Musk's third party in the electorate, at least initially speaking.
This is where I would push back. And they're talking about that 4%, right? Like, this is where I would push back. That's not too far from 5%. And if he got 5%, then they would receive federal funding. That's what the Green Party has been aiming to get to, right? So I think it's a mistake to assume that the only people that Elon would be able to pull towards that party are people that are already Republicans. there could be independents that might move in that direction, right? Like independents that maybe don't support the other third parties that already exist. Because what Elon is basically trying to do is he's trying to make a party that I guess isn't too far to the right or too far to the left. This is the way he kind of described it, at least on X, like for the people who are kind of in the center. And to me, that just sounds like what Andrew Yang created. That sounds like the Forward Parties. Same concept here. I don't know why we need another Forward Party, right? So that's what it seems like to me. But he may be able to pull some people that are independents that just feel like both sides are too extreme for them. Now, I would push back on what they consider to be extreme. I think that we need to have these policies that are going to benefit everyday working people in this country. I think we need healthcare for everybody in this country. I support progressive policies, right? I support policies that go to the left of that, but not everyone does. And there are other people who are registered independents that don't support that and do want something in the center. So I think it's wrong to assume that only people who are conservative voters would support that party. Just putting that out there.
All right. When we talk about third parties at the presidential level, the candidate who most recently had the most success in terms of getting the most votes was Ross Perot. So how does Elon Musk compare to Ross Perot?
Yeah, we'll go all the way back in the time machine to 1992. And we will note Americans with an unfavorable view, i.e. essentially that Musk starts off with far more against him than Ross Perot ever did. Americans with an unfavorable view of Ross Perot was only 14%. Back in 1992. Now, the vast majority of Americans are already against Elon Musk, 58%. So what we're essentially saying here is that Elon Musk is going to go into an electorate that already dislikes him, is already against him, while there were far more people who are open to the idea of a Ross Perot third party or independent candidacy as compared to an Elon Musk third party in which the vast majority of Americans have already sided against the man from Tesla.
But that's assuming that Elon Musk is running, right? So I think that's something that we need to talk about here. Is it Elon Musk trying to run for office himself, or is he just trying to start this party and give that opportunity to other people? Another thing I think we need to mention too, Ross Perot was a billionaire. You know, he was able to get a lot. I think he got like 18. I want to say, I think he got like 18%. When he ran against Bill Clinton and George Bush Sr., I want to say he got like 18%, if I remember correctly. Ross Perot was a billionaire, but Elon Musk is now the richest man in the world. So if Ross Perot was able to get that percentage and he's a billionaire and Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, what I'm saying is he has the money to make it happen. He has the money to get ballot access like that, whereas other third parties, it took them years to do so because they don't have the funds, they don't have the money. Just something I think that people need to put out there and pay attention to.
Elon Musk says he's going to play, forget, the presidential election is years away. The congressional election next year, he says he wants to play there. What's the history of third-party candidates in congressional races?
Horrible, awful, terrible, terrible, terrible. What are we talking about here? All right, elected to Congress from a third party since 1970, just 0.2% of all winners were either third party, independent, or write-in. We're only talking about 24 out of over 13,000 winners. The bottom line is third party, independents, they just don't succeed. Donald Trump is right when he's talking about the fact that third parties, simply put, don't work.
But the reason why they don't succeed and they don't work is because of you, is because of corporate media, because corporate media either shuns those races and doesn't mention them at all, or they spend most of their time smearing it. That's why. That's why. Like I told you guys, Ross Perot was able to get on the debate stage. After that, they made sure that they changed the rules to make it more difficult so that any more third party or independent candidates would have a more difficult time getting on that stage. So it's just clear as day, ladies and gentlemen. So let's not pretend like the rules have not been rigged, against them. That's the part that's funny about this segment.
Leave with this one coda, though. When you're talking about 4% here, it may not be about winning the race, But 4% has been enough to sway an election back and forth.
Ralph Nader in 2000, as we were talking about, he could spoil it for the GOP, but he probably can't win it himself.
Harriet, thank you.
Thank
very
you, my friend.
much. Sarah.
So again, and Paul Davies says it's all about money, Sabs. Really, really 100%. Again, here, I think they're looking at this the wrong way, right? Now, is Elon Musk trying to start some type of worker party, something that's going to work out for the workers? Hells no. Don't be stupid. He is trying to start just another corporate party, but something that is more in the center and not to the right, not to the left. That's what he's trying to do, which is, like I said, Andrew Yang's Forward Party already. But I think that they are under the impression that Elon Musk is trying to run for president instead of Elon Musk is trying to start another party. And I think what he's going to try to do is try to have an impact in Congress to get people in these congressional seats and these Senate seats that are more middle of the road people. That's what I think he's trying to do. That's what I think Andrew Yang was trying to do. And speaking of Andrew Yang, I think you guys need to see this. Elon Musk has some unlikely allies who are backing his America party. Wait till you see who they are. Honestly, I think Elon's just this type of person. He just wakes up one day and he just comes up with something like just because, right? So check this out, ladies and gentlemen. Here's some of the people who are interested. Andrew Yang. Elon Musk plans to launch a new political party. It is gaining interest from outsiders, including Andrew Yang's Forward Party, the Libertarian Party, and political consultants' experience in third-party campaigns. I'm in touch with Elon and his team, and I said to them, look, anyone who wants to challenge the duopoly has a friend in me. That is coming from Andrew Yang, and he told that to Axios. Once again, it said that he started the Forward Party in 2021, Andrew Yang did, and they currently have 46 elected representatives. So let me just say something here real quick, okay? Andrew Yang changes his mind like day and night. Like 1 minute he says, dump the duopoly, and then he was telling everybody vote for Kamala Harris. He all over the place. 1 minute he's anti-duopoly, the next minute he's like, support the Democratic Party. He just kind of go whichever way the wind blows. Just telling you guys. I interviewed Andrew Yang about 2-3 years ago. He's kind of all over the place. Just keep that in mind. But he's one of the people that apparently has reached out to Elon Musk about this party. Guess who else has reached out to Elon Musk? Ron Nielsen, who ran Gary Johnson's 2016 Libertarian campaign, from what I understand, has been the most successful Libertarian presidential campaign, was Gary Johnson. So he's also reached out. Mark Cuban, who's also a billionaire, said that he's ready to help. And Anthony Scaramucci, he was a former Trump White House staffer, but he supported Kamala in 2024. He reached out and said that his DMs are open. So he's getting support from people from, I guess, like different political sides of the aisle. So people are interested. Again, like I said, I think this is just going to be corporate. Now, there is this FEC filing that's going around about Elon Musk party. People are saying they're passing this around, saying that, look, he already filed. Here's the FEC filing, America Party. But I do just want to tell people this. Elon Musk is saying that this isn't real. So I don't know who filed this, but and this guy here who's listed as the treasurer of the party, Taneja, he apparently works with Tesla, right? So Elon Musk said, according to him, this filing is false and has been reported as such to the FEC. So just FYI, folks, it looks like other people are trying to get in on this somehow, right? It's just, I don't know what's going on, but that's what he said. But when it comes to 11 demands, where does Elon fit in all of this? And shout out to my producer, Eric, who wrote this rather quickly today, And he gives a quick analysis here. I just want to show this. Okay. So Elon Musk says people want a new political party. He's right. But is his proposed America Party a real solution to the core problems that we face. Look at it through the lens of 11 demands and you'll get your answers. 2, healthcare for all. Elon Musk never even mentions it. So don't expect the America Party to be calling for the US national healthcare system. No, nope. Demand number 4, end the wars. War is a racket and Elon is in on it. His companies, including SpaceX and Starlink, have billions of dollars worth of contracts with the Department of Defense. What are the chances of his new party calling for deep cuts to military budgets? So that would be a no, guys. See, these things you guys know are not going to happen. 7, this is a big one. Reject censorship. Elon talked a good game, but his takeover of Twitter, X, did not end the censorship on there. In fact, the platform is granting more government censorship requests than ever and has not been shy about purging dissent voices. Can we expect Musk to have demands like these? To break up nationalized large media corporations, disallow deletions and deplatforming, prohibit government agencies from using big tech companies for backdoor censorship, regulate algorithms that impact user interactions? I think you guys know the answer. No. He's showing you this right now as he owns Twitter. It goes on to say here, demand number 10, revamp taxation and funding. Musk has been clear about his desire to reduce the national debt. But anyone who takes a serious look at how government spending works knows that national debt is not a real thing. This is true. MMT teaches us this. Modern monetary theory teaches us that the debt ceiling is a myth. The game is fixed. So it goes on to say the game is fixed for the corporate establishment plays to put forward fake players to act out the role of revolutionary agents and then funnel all the populist energy into battling for or against them. Meanwhile, real revolution movements and leaders are shunted aside. And I've been trying to warn people about this as well. Kudos to Eric for writing this. Be wary of some of the people that are coming forward as independent or third party, but they're still corporate. They still want to operate the party as a corporate party. Be wary of that, because I've been noticing something of people coming forward and they say they're independent or, yeah, we need a third party, but they just want things to remain corporate and they want to protect the status quo. They're trying to hijack a real powerful third party pro-worker movement. And I think we really need to pay attention to that. And Elon's thing is just corporate. We know what's up. We know what's up. All right, let's go to some of the comments, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll get to the last story here, which should be interesting. Moat Witch says Elon is full of shit. Thank you, Pine. Emmanuel Macron came from a third party created by oligarchs and corporatists. Elon is a plant. And thank you, Natalie. Sabby, one of your listeners, Mark Dotson, says his daughter was kidnapped. Maybe give his story some airtime. Oh my God. Mark, can you please email me? If you're watching, can you please email me? Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Trump is a clown and doesn't even realize that most successful third party in U.S. history is the Republican Party. That's true. That is true. Thank you, Kinman. Andrew Yang is a Zionist. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Skylar says, I don't even think Elon cares about the center. He thought he was going to have heavy influence and power in D.C. This so-called party is just another rich man hissy fit. And thank you, Toonsy. I don't think the videos and photos have been destroyed. The blackmailing of our perv government will go on. Interesting. And thank you, Justin. Has 11 demands ever been compared to the Green Party platform? If the Green Party meets the 11 demands, why don't we help grow it? It's not a corporate party. I don't know. You would ask Eric about that. Talk to Eric about that. All righty. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, one more story for you, then we're sending you home. The theme again is don't be stupid. When said leaders decided to boycott against Target, I told you guys, look, I'm all for a boycott. I'm the first to say I'm not buying your stuff. I don't care who you are. I have no problem with that. I haven't shopped at Target in 3 years. I don't really need to go there. What do I need to go there for? I just thought about that, you know, the things I used to go to Target for, like paper towels, TP, that kind of stuff. It's cheaper at my grocery store. So I don't go to Target. I don't like going to Target. It's kind of a headache for me. So I haven't been in like 3 years. When the boycott started, it was, said civil rights leaders like Al Sharpton, Nina Turner was behind this. And people said that we're going to boycott Target because they decided to ban DEI. And I said, well, if you want to boycott them, stop buying their stuff. Just stop, go for it. Boycott, stop buying their stuff. Then later on, at some point, they decided to kind of beg Target, please get our products back up on the shelves. Please get the Black-owned businesses, their products back on your shelves. And this is where I had to turn the page. That's where Metallica came in, because I was just like, turn the page. I forget the original artist. Anywho, I had to, because here was my problem. They made it very clear to you that they did not want your products on their shelves. So there were a number of Black-owned businesses that they said, okay, these are not going to be a part of our shelving anymore, right? To turn around and to say, we want you to allow our products to be there, to me, it seemed like a waste of time, and it gave me begging vibes, and I don't like that. And so my response was, instead of putting that energy into asking Target to let you back on the shelf, take that energy, mobilize, and build your own. Build your own. And I had this conversation a while back. I told you guys, why not all of those people get together? People like Al Sharpton, who's for this, Jamal Bryant, Pastor Jamal Bryant, Nina, all these people that were pushing the boycott. Why not everybody just get together and make your own Target type business? Because I don't like, as I get older, I'm not trying to beg people for shit. I'm not. I'm not. I'm sorry. It comes with something as you get older. You're like, when I was in my 20s, I was a please, please, please person. Please, please, please. What did he say? Was it James Brown? He was like, please, please, please. Young, bushy-eyed and all that kind of stuff, and just was really wanting to make an impression, right? But as I got older, I was like, yeah, I don't really want to beg people for shit anymore. So if you don't want me or you say no, I'm just like, peace, deuces. Like, why are we going back and forth like this? It's just like, that comes from independent media too, by the way. I'm not begging. I got a rule. I'll ask you, I'll invite you on. I think it's 3 is 3 I'll invite you on 3 times. 3 times, and then if I don't hear from you at the 3rd time, I'm not doing this no more. Like, why I gotta beg? So they thought that it was best to try to work things out with Target to get those products back on the shelves, the Black-owned products back on the shelves. And let me show you what Target just did, because see, I be telling people, one day people learn to listen to me. So Target decided it would be a good idea to meet with the Congressional Black Caucus. See, this right here was a big red flag. CBC left unimpressed after candid meeting with Target CEO amid sustained boycott. It is no longer acceptable to deliver promises to our communities in private without also demonstrating those values publicly. That came from U.S. Representative Yvette D. Clarke. What did the Congressional Black Caucus think was going to come from this? And the moment I saw that the CBC was meeting with Target, I was just like, they ain't gonna get nothing done. Nothing's gonna get done. What has the CBC done? What are they doing? They can get things done for Israel, and they do. They prioritize them. They'll get things done there. But when it comes to this type of stuff, no, they ain't really trying to, no, they're not going to get anything done here, right? So they met with Target. I don't know how they thought that this was going to go. And it says here that the CBC leadership, that included Stephen Horsford, Troy A. Carter, Bobby Scott, they pressed Target's leadership for some clear answers on the consequences of the company's decision to scale back its diversity initiatives, the caucus said in a press release. So, okay, again, you going to Target, asking them why they did what they did. I thought they made that clear from the jump as to why they did what they did. And you still trying to play ball with Target. It's like trying to ask your ex to come back to you after they have already told you they don't want you. It's embarrassing. Let them go. Then this part here, last month during an earnings call with investors, Cornell shared that the nationwide boycott of Target led by Atlanta's Pastor Jamal Bryant and civil rights leaders had resulted in a decline in sales and consumer confidence. This is true. If you look up the numbers, things have declined. But even that did not make Target change their mind. And it goes on to say here, scroll down to this part. They went into the murder of George Floyd. I passed it. I'm sorry. Here we go. It goes on to say here, this is what Clark said. Black consumers contribute overwhelmingly to our economy and to Target's corporation bottom line. Our communities deserve to shop at businesses that publicly share our values without sacrificing our dignity. It is no longer acceptable to deliver promises to our communities in private without also demonstrating those values publicly. So anyway, long story short, Target is not going to do anything here. Okay. So I just don't understand this. I don't understand the strategy. I don't know who initiated this originally. I don't know if it was Al Sharpton. I don't know. But boycott is one thing. Begging is another thing. They don't want you. But they do want someone. And this is pissing a lot of people off. They decided their response to this is to partner with someone that is willing to play their game. And that is Cenat. Cenat is a very popular gamer, streamer. This young guy, like he's very young. I believe 22, 23, very young, multimillionaire, has lucrative brand deals. Their response after meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus at the end of June is to make a deal with Cenat. Someone who's willing to play their game. Check it out. Target is fumbling the bag with Black shoppers and is hoping Cenat can fix that. So you might recognize him. Very popular streamer. I see some people in the chat saying they can't stand him. Yeah. We're going to get to that part. You see how Target do you? You see what they do? So Target goes on to say, here it is here. Target is starting to feel like that toxic situationship we all were warned about, the one doing the absolute most to win you back without ever apologizing for the damage they cause. And the thing is, they don't have to. See, this is the thing. They know they don't have to. They know they don't have to apologize. That's why they're doing what they're doing. So they bring in Kai, the latest move, teaming up with popular streamer Cenat and his content collective AMP, Any Means Possible, to launch a personal care brand called Tone, available exclusively at Target. So you see what I'm saying? You see how businesses are? They kick the other businesses off the shelves and say, nope, we're not going to keep you here because the DEI thing, etc. But then they make a deal with him. Someone who's not upset with Target. Someone who looks like you, but is willing to play their game. Companies do this all the time. They go with the people that is willing to kiss their ass or play their game. So this is their way of responding. And honestly, it's embarrassing. The CBC went up there to try to work something out with them, which I knew that wasn't going to get anywhere. And this is how Target responds. Walk away from them. They go on here to say, this group, which includes Cenat, Duke, Dennis, Agent 00, Chris Next Do, and I'm Davis, kicked off the campaign with a live stream sleepover inside a Target store. But while AMP celebrated the moment, viewers were far more conflicted. The internet was quick to point out the contradiction. Black creators partnering with a brand that not only pulled back its DEI commitments, but has also repeatedly fumbled opportunities to repair that harm, even in meetings with groups like the CBC and Reverend Al Sharpton. Fam, this deal with Kai Cenat, this is Target playing in your face. They playing in your face. It's like Kai crossed the picket line or something. You know, it's like there's always one that's what they know. There's one that we can get that's willing to come over our way and do things the way that we want them done. And this is why I continue to say people need their own shit. This is why all those leaders that came together, Jamal Bryant, Al Sharpton, all the resources and all the big platforms that they have, they could not put their heads together and create something of their own. No, we're going to beg Target. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think it's cool to be second best. I don't think it's cool to beg. I don't like it at all. And it makes me wonder, what is this really all about? Because I thought the boycott was to, say a F you to Target, but you got the boycott, but then behind the scenes, you still trying to work something out with them so you can get the products back on the shelf. I'm really confused. Walk the fuck away. That's my take on that. But this is even more personal because Kai Cenat said some things before that rubbed Black people the wrong way. Let me show you. And I'm going to show you from two different people. So people not like, oh, that's just Phil Scott's interpretation. No, I'm going to show you it from Phil Scott and I'm going to show you it from Karen Hunter. This was a year ago. Watch this.
Let's go ahead and roll the clip that a lot of people is bothered by.
All my who are not cultured at all, stop body. I don't want to hear, when I'm asking general questions, I'm not asking y'all, stop body. That is black. You're black. You're just black.
Just be yourself and hit them with hey. Also, I just bowed the Anarchy hoodie yesterday. Can't wait. Finna resubscribe and a little W female viewer. Big 2 months December 9th.
Thank you so much. Bro, you're just fully American. You're African American, bro. That's it. How was that see you in 30? That wasn't an insult. That was strictly you're black. You're not Trinidadian. You're not Jamaican. You're not African. You're not word. You're not Ghanaian. You're not Dominican. You're not Puerto Rican. You're not Cuban. You are American.
I farted so loud.
So yes, Kai Cenat, we are Black and we are American. But let me tell y'all what they view American is. They actually have more of an anti-Black view. In their mind, American means white. It doesn't mean Black. It means white. This is why he say you just Black. But yet he's mentioned nationalities of other countries. But yet we're just Black. No, we're Black American.
Yeah. Yo, man, that was flat out disrespectful, dude. That was flat out disrespectful. And it wasn't just Phil Scott who called it out. I was shocked to see this from Karen Hunter. And yeah, I know someone already said it in the chat. Who was it? FM? Karen Hunter is a Democrat shill. Yes, she is. But she was right about this. She called it out as well. Listen to what Karen said here.
In a time such as this, it is unacceptable. And we should shout it from the mountaintops that this is unacceptable behavior. So I'm going to need Kai, Carlos, Cenat to shut your mouth as it relates to race and black people and this and that. You don't know enough, and whatever you feel and whoever you're around, they, that money that is coming into your pocket. And this is problematic. We have a generation of young people who don't have to go to work, don't have to read a book, don't have to go to school. They're making millions of dollars as influencers with no substance and depth. There was a time when like a Paul Robeson, who we had a lengthy conversation on the show, had to do all of the things and still wasn't making a whole lot of money. But he had to be an academic valedictorian, and football player, singer, songwriter. I mean, he had to do all of the things just to make ends meet. Now you don't have to be much of anything if you do something that people like. So he Twitch, which is where people watch people. We're a nation of voyeurs, by the way. People watch people play video games. He had a peak of 306,000 subscribers and a gaggle of advertisers, because those kind of numbers bring in the money, which is part of the conversation we were having about the WNBA.
And we'll pause it. We'll go ahead and pause it there. So I wanted you to see it from two different people. Yeah, that was pretty disrespectful. What he said about us. And I know he's very young. I get all of that. But I remember when I heard it a year ago, and I was just kind of like, wow, it really makes me feel some kind of way. But I showed you that to prove a point. That's who Target chose to make a deal with. Kai Cenat has deals with various companies. Like I said, he's young, but he's a multimillionaire. He is very successful. I'm not here to tell you he's not. I'm not here to tell you, he's not good at what he does. Like, he's very successful. Obviously, he found something that he was very passionate about and did it very well. But look at who they chose to pick to work against the activists. This is what I said before. Guys, tools of the empire, tools of corporate America, when they really want to stick it to you, they're not going to use someone who's not like you. They're not going to use someone of a different race. They're going to use someone who look just like you. They're going to use them to stick it to you. And this is why I said, when they were talking about Target, we need to make a deal with you, put these products back on the shelf and da-da-da. This is why I said, don't be begging them. They made it very clear to you that they don't want it there. Why are you begging them? And now they turn around and they respond like this. Their response is, let's sign this young guy because he doesn't care about our politics. Let's sign this guy. See how easy that was? There's always one. The people who are begging Target right now, you have now turned into, you were the person begging the ex to come back, and the ex told you, they don't want to come back. Now you're the person begging your ex to come back, and they already found somebody else. And the person that they found is Kai. And I found this interesting because, peep this, if you look at Kai, his background, his earlier background, check this out. Kai attended Frederick Douglass Academy. That's in Harlem. So like those comments and stuff that he made, it's not like he had not been around like Black Americans. That's in Harlem. Nina Turner went on to say, Target will do everything but the right thing. They act like we don't have more escalatory tactics to pressure them. Keep playing games, Target. Again, with the pressure. Why at this point, and she's talking about the Kai Cenat deal. Why at this point are you still trying to pressure somebody who don't want to dance with you? Target is playing in your faces and you still want to try to make something work with them. I just don't understand this. It's like the people who still want to try to make something work with the Democratic Party. I said it was an abusive relationship. Apparently, people like abusive relationships. I don't get this. I don't get it. Is there something else going on here that I don't know about? Is there something else going on behind the scenes that I just don't know about? Why are they pushing this so damn hard? Why they can't just walk away? Eric said money. I don't get this, you guys. I do not get this at all. Because to me, all those people, smart, people with a plethora of resources, people who have large platforms, why aren't you trying to take all of that knowledge and resources together and say, you know what, all of us, we're going to get together and we're going to build our own Target. No, it's not going to be called Target, but we're going to build something like that and we're going to get donors and we're going to make it happen. Why that's not the conversation? That's why it's suspect to me. This whole thing to me is very suspect. I just don't understand why you still want to try to dance with Target. It just makes me feel like there's something else going on behind the scenes. And it makes me wonder if some kind of deal been made with somebody. But let me find out. Don't be stupid. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to the chat. Hey. Alrighty. Brian said Sabby doing the damn thing with the receipts. FM said Karen Hunter is a Democrat shill. She is, but she was right about that one. Danielle says because the boule need those crumbs. And there you go. There's some money somewhere behind this, guys. Dawn says Kai Cenat is Drake's homie. That explains some things. Skylar said not the full government name. Yeah, they went there. Thank you. Where's the love? This further supports the argument as to why FBAs must delineate. These folks are dangerous. Thank you, Shockwave. Modern day Zip Coon Sabby. This is why I laugh when they say we all got to rise together. We can't with, I don't even think I can say that on here. We can't with folks like him. Think Target targeted this clown to represent us. Thank you, Shockwave. The go along, get along gang, Sabby. I think there's some money attached to this somewhere, Shockwave. I really do. I really do. Do you guys think if Malcolm X was alive, he would be pushing this? Do you think like if Fred Hampton was alive, he would be pushing after the way Target has responded? Or would Fred Hampton said, let's build our own? You see what I'm saying? Thank you, Cougar. Sabby, there's a black lady who started her own department store. I will email it to you to interview her. Yes, please send it to me. Thank you. The knowledge is there. The information's there, guys. It's out there. And I think, we just need to give it to more people. We just need to get that information to more people. And I think we'll be all right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for me tonight. Thursday night, we have a pretty big guest. Oliver Stone we have an interview with Oliver Stone and Dan Kovalik. That is, I told you guys I wanted to have that conversation about the Vietnam War in comparison to Gaza, because I'm seeing a lot of similarities. So we're going to have that conversation. So first time that they will be on the show. Don't miss that, 8 p.m. Eastern. And did I miss something? Roger just posted. Okay. Oh, sure. Yeah. Rockfin. Sorry. Let's get that. And then we'll skadoodle. Return of the Mac. Return of the Mac. Oh my gosh. Oh, that song has been stuck in my head for quite a while. Oh, okay. Eric said he's working on okay. Thank you. Here I go. I wish I knew the words to the song besides that part. Thank you, Roger, for the tip on Rockfin. Sabrina, business does as business do. They are apathetic. They will do what is in their best interest. Also, with Ross Perot, that's when both parties got together to push League of Women voters out of them hosting debates. Yeah. And thank you, Salt and Pepper Natural. What happened to the grape case Kai was involved with? Oh, I didn't know about that. I don't know. I don't know about that one. Interesting. And thank you, Shockwave. Target need us to undermine AES as Target is French owned. Interesting. When I was in high school, we used to call it Target. Everyone used to say that Target was a step up from Walmart. Target need to get out of here with those prices. Shit, I can find things cheaper on Shein than I get on Target. All right, guys, that's it. I am out of here. Thank you so much for your time. Join me Thursday night live, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's it. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.